listening to the Northern Hunter Podcast, home of all things hunting, fishing, and outdoors in Alaska.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. This is going to be a fun one. My name is James Payne. We've got Mo here working the controls.
Hello.
And Chris is joining us in the studio today.
How's it going, guys?
Fantastic. It's going to be the three of us today. No guest, but we are going to continue the theme from last week of things you can add to your list of activities for the state.
What if I don't have any room left on the list?
Well, I mean, that's fine, but but if you happen to have some time, or you just want to make some time, there's a lot of stuff that's not scaly that you can chase in the springtime.
See, you know, the whole what's the Moe's gripe thing? I just opened a can of jerky chew. Discover that it's empty.
Oh no! I hate when that happens.
Yeah, me too. It's disappointing. I would have bought
Those are your coffee ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
whatever.
But yeah, so we're going to be talking about littler critters you can chase in the springtime, specifically some beaver hunting tips and tricks, a little bit about some muskrats, and one of my favorites is porcupine and how to get after a lot of that stuff. So, but as you so amazingly put, Mo,
What's that?
there's not always a lot of time because we're doing other stuff in the spring too.
There's a lot happening. As soon as the sun comes out and snow melts, it's just,
Yep. This is the run and gun season. It's like the 4 hours of sleep a night, if that. So, how's you guys' season been going?
I guess I'll go first because Chris is looking at me.
Yeah.
Well, it's going good. Nothing negative really yet. It's I had a bear steal a beaver off of a bait and didn't come back yet, but he had a lot earlier than they hit last year, so that's good.
Yeah, last year was rough.
Yeah. So it's looking good on the bait situation.
Yep. And you've got one out right now, right?
I've got one out, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be putting some more out here short order, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's the same with me. We've got, my wife went out and found a spot. And then, I'm hopefully, by the time this comes out, the rest of mine will be out too.
That's my hope too.
Yeah, it's time to get busy. This spring really snuck up on me, dude. Like, I was expecting so much later, and
Same here.
so much. Like, I had such a laundry list of stuff to do, and then like I look out the window and there's no snow. I'm like, oh man.
You know what's funny is
It's all green.
It's all green.
You're like, oh yeah, spot stock. Oh, never mind.
last year I felt like I was out of time for everything.
Mm-hmm.
This year I feel so on top of things.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. If it's because the spring was early enough and I was ready when it hit.
Right.
But-
Right. Well, and I don't feel too bad. I'm only like a week behind you
Okay.
as far as my schedule goes. So I mean, I've got plenty of time left. But
That's what you say.
It's
Next thing you know, it's going to be June.
That's a hard thing with Alaska, man. Is like, we talk about how much stuff there is to do here, but it's like all of it is just back to back to back
Right.
to back
Well,
to
and you
back.
have
It's
to work
like,
to support the habit. So
yeah, you got to work, and then all of us work jobs that require astronomical hours of us, and then which is kind of the cool thing is if you're listening to this, like we're not some like paid hunters that go out and do this for a living. We're
one
like,
day hopefully,
we're
yeah,
struggling. Right? We're struggling with the grind too.
Severely.
But it's that feeling of constantly being behind is like just a normal part of my
it's an
life
Alaska
here
thing, yeah.
because you get out of the thaw and it's right into bear baiting and beaver hunting and all these different stuff, and then you're running around, and that's when work always kicks up, right? Construction projects start
Right.
and everything's going off. 6 days a week kicks up, and then you get out of that and it's time to get the fish. You have only July to get the fish, like because you got other stuff going on later, and then it's August suddenly, and now that's caribou, and then it's
You could still get
moose,
fish,
and
but
it's
then
like-
you got to forfeit caribou season. and
right. It's like
you
you're
just gotta
always
pick and choose.
always chasing your tail, but it's fun.
Last
It's like-
year, that's what I did. I looked at my wife and I was like, caribou or salmon. She was like, salmon. I was like, okay, cool.
Alrighty.
Put the rifle back up.
Yep. Good to know, baby. Good to know.
Grab the dip net. Grab the dip net in the tent.
Yeah. No, but I'm hoping the bears roll in soon. It'll be fun. I almost got one the other night. A little bit of road hunting. Went out during the golden hour and some well known bear spots and
what time is the golden hour, James?
Yeah.
roundabouts 1 a.m.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Didn't know if you knew that.
I feel
or
like
not.
we just had to talk about this, and I got some flack for this.
No, the later times. So like realistically, and even for bear baiting, really. I mean, certain areas are different, depending on your regional bears. But I mean, really, anything after 10 p.m., that's prime time, dude.
Yeah.
That's when things start rolling. It's cooled off. It's not as bright.
Dude,
I'm more comfortable in there because the sun's not beating down on me. Like,
I set one of my baits and kind of walked away from it. There was a bunch of snow in there, and I rolled back in there. My wife and I walked back in there and like scented it all out 11 days ago as of yesterday. And it was just absolutely demolished when I walked in there. So, but it's that whole thing. They're like coming in at 1:30, between like 1:30 and 7:30 a.m. And I'm like, how the heck am I supposed to do this?
You got the morning bears?
Yeah. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
I like the 8 p.m.
I know, right?
Back home.
If you don't have time for that, just send me a pin.
Yeah. You send me, I'll trade you. You send me one, I'll send you one.
Sure. I don't have any. I have
want
one
pictures.
bear hit mine so
I want
far.
pictures too.
Right here, I just showed you the picture already. You've seen the bear.
You should. I should show you some of these bears.
Right.
So my wife's like, you better figure out what you're doing because we're not feeding those things.
Right.
I'm kind of thinking about. I drag it on because I love going out so much. But I think this year I'm going to try to get it over with quick.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I think I'm going for food bears this year.
Yeah.
Just get some meat
The
and
bigger they are, the more meat they have.
dive into projects and get into other stuff that I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to do some fall spot and stock, and
Right.
I'm going to try to make quick work of this.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got the ability.
Yeah.
That's a good established spot. That's the cool thing too, is like when you have that ability, it's like
Right.
the first few years, and this is what I tell a lot of early bear baiters, it's like the first few years are going to suck. Like,
Yeah, it depends on the spot, but they can.
yeah,
Definitely.
like it's going to be a lot of work. You're going to be figuring stuff out, making mistakes. But like once you get established and you have a spot and there's bears there, and it's like you can just walk in, dump dog food, and walk out. Like it's it's not as big of a production, I guess you could say.
Fuel's expensive and dog food's expensive, but like I tell like a buddy of mine, him and I were chatting this morning, and he was like, "How long will you devote to a bait?" And I was like, "Well, like." What are we talking? He's like, well, like if I don't have bears this year, do I just, can that spot? And I'm like, it's kind of up to you because and I think we've covered this before, but like I've set baits up that haven't got hit the first year, and the second year it's like a 10-year-old bait.
Right.
It's insane. It's just rolling with
once
bears.
They get moving. Yeah. Well, the bait that I had that bear on this year, I didn't have him hit till end of June last year. I kept it up all through the season. And I had a couple hit end of the month, and then it was too late to hunt them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
I got a bait.
And here they are a month earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a compounding thing too, because once you get these things rolling in there,
they remember where it's at.
They remember where it's at, especially if you get a sow with cubs. Those cubs are going to remember where it's at. But then on top of that, even if you've just got, they're tracking through the grease and the smell goods. If you get some of those
bears attract more bears. Yeah.
Beta 907, they've got that ground sprinkle. You can put it all over the place. This little powder crystals, awesome stuff. Gets on their paws. They're spreading it out, and so then it's like a compounding effect of like bears bring in more bears that bring in more bears, and like the longer you commit to one spot, the better it's going to be.
And like one of our best spots, we had no bears for 2 years, and we baited it anyway. So you got a permit up on that bait site, that with nothing happening, and you're not like going in there with food every time you go and scent because you're not getting any action, right? But then it just like third year, it just blew up, like and probably one bear walked by there, spread scent, and it took off from there,
Yeah, well, because they know the trails that all the other bears use.
And that's not an expensive way to set a bait up if you can be patient. That's a good way to establish a bait. I mean, if you're willing to go through the agony of like 24 months of nothing,
right? Well, and sometimes it's not that long, but it's like I've known people that didn't have bears hit in the first 2 weeks, and they're like, "Oh, this place is trash. This place is no, just give it time, man. Like it's a patience game.
I had
it really is."
He'd baited at one point in his life, and I talked about it like, "Oh, I've baited. It's not worth it. I never had any bears. Bears don't hit, whatever." And I was like, "Oh, all right, good. Good for you, I guess."
Got a lot of data that says otherwise.
But then we were out riding whalers just for fun in an area, and I had a bait in that area, and I was like, "Hey, since we're here, let's run in there and clean this thing up." And And because it was towards the end of the season, I was like, "Oh, I'm here. You mind if we run into the sure?" And we ran in there, and it's eaten out.
Mhm.
There is bear trails stomped in everywhere. I've got pictures. I pull up the pictures on my phone while we're there, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, looky here. There hasn't been bait here for 3 weeks." And we chased bears off when we walked in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he's going, "Whoa, dude, this is insane!" Like it, blew his mind because well, yeah, I mean, it was a grizzly bait, and it was end of June, and you couldn't shoot grizzlies on the bait, so we hadn't baited it. We just hadn't cleaned it up yet.
Yeah.
And we got covered up in bears. But
well, and it happens quick.
And it's inspired him. He said he keeps talking about putting a bait out this year. He hasn't, but it inspired him. It was a few years ago, and he's like, "I want a bait."
Mm-hmm. It's a time commitment is the big thing.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, you went out there, at one point and nothing had hit yet, scented it all up, dumped more dog food, and by the time you came in, it was like hundreds of pounds gone.
I've had a lot of baits where we just don't get anything that you never get a bear.
Mm.
And you set them again and you get bears.
Yeah.
But I guess I probably have like a different train of thought on that.
Well, it's just cool when you go from like, you're starting to question yourself and doubt yourself. And I mean, I've had to go all the way up to, the Labor Day week or Memorial Day weekend where it's like, man, did I just really blow this whole thing? Like, am I just not good at this? Is it time to hang up, hang up the hat,
Right.
And then like you walk in and there's no food left. It's just gone.
I think one thing too is, we're when you look for a bait site and you look hard to find a spot where you're alone and you find a valley, like, all right, I know there's a bait 5-6 miles that way, but they're in another valley, and there's another one that way, but they're in another valley, so I know I'm by myself. You set up, you scent up like crazy, everything, and you hardly get any bears, or you don't get any. Well, they're in that valley, Right. You're alone, and the bears aren't coming to you because they're on those baits.
You're very alone.
Right?
Right, yeah. But they'll come over.
If you give it enough time,
yeah,
you'll get them. It just takes the right bear wandering through the area because all the other bears are hanging out where they know the food's at.
Right.
I think there's a lot to be said for that.
And the other thing too is they'll make circuits. Because they'll make cycles around where they know where food is too.
In recent years, when I set up a bait where I know I'm probably in a little competition, try to get away from everybody, but I know I'm in a little competition just because it's a convenient location or something. And I'll have bears really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's an area, there's been lots of baits. There's been lots of baits there for years. So as long as my food's better and my scent is better, I have bears.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get them fast, really fast.
I've gotten baits from buddies too that are like, "Oh, dude, we baited that so hard and we're never going back there. That was a waste of time. Like, can I have that pin?"
Right.
And they're like, "Yeah." And I'll go in there and I'll be like, "Hey, check this out." And they're like, "Dude, what?"
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, this is where you guys were." It's rolling with bears. But
We've talked a ton about setting up baits and scent and all that. And there's more episodes and hours of it than you want to listen to from last year at this time. If you go back and find it, skip through, find the ones.
It was a whole series.
It was a whole series, and it will, unless you have never done it before, it'll probably bore you to death. But there's a ton. There's so much information there.
Yeah.
Find what you need. Skip ahead. Don't be afraid to do that.
We really poured our hearts.
We did. Oh, we went into it. But
I think that's like a big piece of being an Alaskan.
I think so.
Like it took me a long time to like. I think that bear baiting is like just such a huge part of our culture here. Like it is a big deal when it comes around.
Yeah.
Like even before I was warmed up to it, all my buddies would just disappear in the springtime, and I'd be like fishing solo, and I'm like, I don't really want to get in on this. And then I just started realizing like I'm missing out on this.
Right.
And it's so fun, and
yeah,
it's such a good excuse to just get out if you love nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the bait thing and people not getting bears on baits, right? And we've talked about scent and all that, and making sure you do enough of that. Because if you don't do any scent and you don't have any bears, well, there's the reason you don't have any bears is because there's no reason for them to show up. I found, I'm sure, if you're in an area, you look to see if there's other baits before you move in. I found a bait last year. It had like 300 pounds of dog food in a pile, dry. They had like one little red spot of something they'd poured on the top in the middle. Like, wasn't 5% of the pile of something they'd try to sweeten it up with. There was no scent. If there was, I couldn't smell it. Right? Now I realize a bear has a better nose than me, but there's a pile of dry dog food that hadn't been touched. And they'd cleared out, which they're not supposed to do, right? They're supposed to clean all that up, but they'd cleared out and taken everything but that pile of dog food.
Was this bow season?
Which is highly illegal, by the way.
It is highly illegal, right?
Just for anybody listening.
Yeah, but no, it was just it was just end of baiting season, and I was running around, and I was like, hey, I think there's a bait over here, miles and miles from where I was at, but I just rode in there to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And those tree stand, everything, all that's gone. No bears had been there, right? If you're a bear baiter, you know when bears have been there. You can tell. And like a pile of dry dog food. And I was like, I wonder why they didn't have any bears.
Yeah.
Man, I would have bagged that up and saved it.
It was
right.
It was end of the season, and I had a full wheeler of tree stands.
Dude, I'm not kidding. I would have. I've done stuff like that where
Dog
it's
food's
just
expensive.
like,
Yeah, it is. I know.
But it's good to hear that you guys are
anyway.
getting after it, and we're all hoping things kick off soon. Maybe by next episode we'll have
a dead bear.
maybe you'll have all your meat
I
bears.
do know. I
me
do
and
know a guy that
Carlito
killed a
set
bear.
up too.
I do know of one guy that's gotten a bear on his bait already. Killed one.
Oh, there's been several.
Yeah, one guy personally that I know.
Yeah.
Well, but
Oh, they're out in the boot.
All my
the time.
buddies have gotten bears except me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I forgot you guys went out. Yeah.
Who's that?
Oh, you mentioned you and Carlito.
Oh yeah, we went and set our stuff up, and
Mm-hmm.
that was wild. We like thought we were gonna bring a tent. We always get so outfitted, and we just like both slept in the front seat of his truck. Like we just dropped the seats back, and like I woke up, it's like 105 degrees in there. The heater's running, truck's on, still in all my warm gear. Yeah,
Isn't it
2
the
hours of
best?
sleep and
That's all I
back
do
up,
anymore.
breakfast.
the amount of
and-
time it takes to set up a tent and everything, unless I'm going to be there more than a night.
Oh, we were there for like 2 days.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Still, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're running back and forth on a truck and stuff too, which you are at times, like to me, it's just stretch out. I can't sleep in the back of a truck. I'm too tall,
Me either.
right?
Yeah.
And you're even taller than I am, so like it's much easier for me just to stretch out in a seat. And sure, I wake up every few hours and have to move, but like, what's the big deal?
If some of these newer trucks, like my Chevy, the front seat leans back pretty good.
Yeah, well,
I
yeah,
can get pretty
yeah,
comfortable
and
in
you-
mine. But
yeah.
my old one, I had an old Ford F-250, and it only leaned back
Well,
like
yeah.
45 degrees.
Most of
and
the
I
newer
was like,
trucks, you can just grab that lever. It just goes back as far as anything it can reach.
Yeah, as long as you don't have too much crap back there.
Well, yeah. A lot of times you have to clear it all out, but
So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're going to be going far. Don't pack too much for an overnight.
Yeah, we
Don't
always
get too fancy with
dude, we always just pack the house, and then it's we don't even touch anything.
it. Yeah.
My
You don't have
wife,
time.
dude, my wife used to like cook us food and stuff, and she's like, "I'm not cooking for you guys ever again," because
Yeah.
like I bring like the food back and I'm putting it in the boat and stuff. And she's like, "What is it? Where's my Tupperware at? Where's the?" And I'm like,
yeah.
and then she's like, "Did you eat this stuff?" And I'm like chucking it off in the corner of the yard. She's just like,
Yeah.
she's like, "I'm never cooking for you guys again."
I have that problem every time I go hunting is I'll bring so much food. Like I'm about to sit on the couch and just veg out, right? But like I'm out there being active and moving and like focused on things and like doing stuff. And I'll come home with 3/4 of my food still.
Yeah,
Like, I just don't have time to sit and eat.
It's
Like,
mountain house is a good thing.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Dude,
Well,
when
didn't eat that.
we went moose hunting, and I came home with a bunch of food.
Oh yeah, me too.
And my wife was just like, "You guys eat the."
Well, especially with
I
what they
think
charge for that stuff
I think
now.
I sent it with you, dude.
Yeah, you did. It was good stuff. I ate it. And I think I brought your Tupperware back. I'm pretty
I
sure.
don't know.
Anyway.
yeah.
She
On the
won't.
note of
She won't
prepared
listen to
food,
this. She hears me enough.
I went out hunting with a buddy, caribou hunting. Like he had full camp. We were wheelering in, camping for days. Like set up trailers on the wheelers, coolers of food, everything. Right now, and for us, for everybody there except for one guy, his son, we all ate whatever we wanted to eat and had a whole cans of food and hot dogs, steaks, whatever. His son can't have all these additives and stuff. Whatever reason, he can't have most of that stuff, and so his mom had prepared grocery bag, like Ziploc bags full of all this different stuff that he could have, all chopped and ready for him just to pull out and cook up and eat. And they stuck that cooler with a can of gasoline in the trailer, and the gasoline opened up
No.
and got all over everything. And the only food it really contaminated was all of that food.
That sucks.
And so like they in reach, and then somebody the next day rides all the way back, and she prepared everything and drove out to meet. And
What a
like-
gal.
yeah,
What a
anyway,
what a
yeah,
gal.
yeah, I know, but yeah, like well, it's her son. If it was her husband,
Right.
she'd probably say tough. But
You mentioned the inReach.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea to touch on that a little.
What's
Is
that?
communicating.
Oh,
Having-
100%.
Well,
Mm.
so I got a couple buddies that don't have inReaches, and they know better. And they're the guys that talk to me into getting an inReach.
Mm-hmm.
And I got one buddy in particular, and I'm like always telling him, get an inReach. He's like, oh yeah, I will. And like,
well, it's easy to say until you go down and look at the price and go,
well, what's it cost?
It's worth it.
If you need it, it's cheap insurance.
I agree.
The first time you use that, you're going to be like, I'd pay that 5 times over.
Yeah.
But, I thought about this the other day, and my wife and I were chatting about this, and I talked a buddy of mine into going and buying one today. I was like, go get one right now, because he's starting to do a lot of spot and stock, and he's running by himself. And I was like, dude, go get an inReach. And he was like, oh, yeah, I will. And I'm like, go get an inReach. You need it. But, it dawned on me, and I'm sure other people have thought about this or dealt with this, but so say I call you, James, right? And you don't have an inReach, and I inReach you.
Yeah.
So I give you some details on where I'm at, right? You think you got a pretty good description, or I think I gave you a good description of where I'm at, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get up to where I'm at now to help me, and you don't have cell service now.
Right. Yeah.
And we can't go like inReach to inReach, right?
Right.
And this is something I think is a good thing to consider.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this a lot with buddies of mine, and I've talked to people that have encountered this issue.
So you can do it. And I actually just set this up with my buddy the other day. inReach to inReach.
You can inReach to inReach. He's saying if you don't have an inReach.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, like so say I inReach you and you're in bed and you don't have an inReach.
Right.
And now you get where I'm at to come help me, and you're like, wait a minute, I forgot, was it this?
Yeah, was it
this area or this area?
Right.
And now you can't, we have no line of communication because now you're in a dead zone too with me, right? And I've heard of guys having to go all the way back to town to get service again,
right?
To get those details hashed out.
Well, and so two ways to avoid that. One is if you have location enabled on your inReach, then it gives the person the exact coordinates that
if they
text
have,
message was
if they
sent
have
from.
an inReach or a device.
No. So if you inReach my cell phone,
and
you have location enabled on your inReach, it gives me the coordinates you were at when you sent that message.
Through what?
Through a link on my cell phone.
Yeah, if you have that link. So make sure you have that link.
That's right.
Like,
that's what I'm saying. So if you have location enabled, it'll attach a link to that text message, and then you open it up, you get the coordinates, and you can mark that on your Onyx or something like that, and then you have that to go off.
What is that link?
It's coordinates. It's the Garmin inReach link that is with your text message. You click on it. It's literally in the text message, and you click on it, and it opens up with a map and shows you the coordinates.
That's a good thing to highlight too.
Yeah,
I mean, I've just heard
if you want to keep your hunting spots private, guys, make sure you turn that off when you don't need it.
Right. Because otherwise, every text message you send will have a location ping to it.
While we're on that topic, you can also set up your inReach.
It's EarthMate, right?
Yeah.
That's the Bluetooth
That's the app.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can set up your inReach Garmin account so that your wife or whoever you trust has access to your location. They can basically check, and as long as you have tracking updates set on your inReach to update, she can get online with her own username and password. Doesn't even have to be linked to your account if for whatever reason you don't trust her with that, which
you probably got other problems with that.
Yeah, right. But or if it's just a buddy and you don't want them accessing everything else, you can say, here's a username and password. If you use this, you can access my location.
Right.
And I think on there's even a button to click for update location if it hasn't updated in a while. If the inReach is on, boom, they get an active location. Now it's not useful once they're out there, but if they haven't heard from you for 3 days,
right,
and they can't get a hold of you, they can go. Hopefully the inReach is still on, or at least it'll give its last known location.
Yeah. 2 other good things that inReach will do is so you can set up predetermined text messages that are actually free of charge. So when you get these services, it's like $20 for 20 texts, and that's back and forth. So that's 10 messages each back and forth during a conversation, right? Or like $25 for 40 messages, or $30 for 60, and it goes up to unlimited, but it gets to like cell phone prices at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But you can have like preset messages where you say, all right, number 1 sends to 3 people letting them know that I made it to camp. And then all of a sudden they're updated. I made it. I'm safe.
Yeah.
And then heading out is another one of mine. So they know I'm heading out of wherever I'm at.
Send help now.
Send help.
Please.
If you don't want to hit that SOS button.
Right.
Hurry.
But the thing is, so if you do have buddies
Too many
that have
animals down.
inReaches-
I need help.
I know, right? Bring knives. But if you do have, like, let's say you're out there with your inReach and I have my inReach, right? And you maybe text me on my cell phone and I say, all right, I'm on my way. The way you have to set up inReach to inReach communication is not through the number. If you try to inReach my inReach, like if you look at a text message from my inReach and you try to type that into your inReach and send me a message, it won't work. You have to use my inReach email address, basically my
Well, it's an inReach address specifically. It looks like an email address.
Correct. Yeah. It's like whatever your username is at Garmin at
Right.
inReach.com.
Yeah, it's on your inReach. You can find it, but that is how you set that up.
Right. And so don't think you're just going to type that number in and send a message to your buddy on his inReach. It has to be the email.
You got to get it from him in person before he's...
So set that up ahead of time.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah.
Right.
And they're an amazing device.
All of us should probably do that.
We probably should, yeah.
We're sitting here advising this, and I don't have a single one of
I
your
have
guys'.
a few people set up on mine, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you and I are kind of we're near each other in some elements.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But that's all good stuff.
I just want to wake one of you guys up to come help me field dress a bear, just to do it. I just want to see.
Good luck.
I'm telling you, please.
I've done it myself plenty of times. You're good luck.
Yeah.
Same here. If you guys get in a pinch.
But no, those are a great tool. I think everybody in Alaska, if you're going to be playing around in the wilderness, should have one.
If you just drive out of town.
Honestly, yeah. If you're
it's so useful for
you
so many
may never
things.
turn it on for months.
Here's the thing. So I have an AT&T phone, and I can't text my wife what brand of chips she wants me to buy when I'm inside Fred Meyer's, but I can text from almost anywhere on the road system and call. Like there's very few dead zones with AT&T. Verizon, if you have a Verizon phone, I'm here to tell you, you're not going to do very well out in remote Alaska.
You know what's funny is there's places with my AT&T phone I don't have service, and that's the place that my buddy with Verizon has service.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, I mean, it's alternating towers. I mean, and same thing with GCI. Like GCI has a lot of service in remote areas that other places
they specifically cater to that, right?
Exactly.
It's gotten a lot better.
It has, and it's going to continue to get better.
AT&T, you don't have service. Once you leave Fairbanks, you don't have service till Coldfoot.
Lie.
No.
Almost that whole road.
I'm here to tell you that's a lie.
No.
Okay, where do you have service from in between?
All the way to Wickersham.
Yeah, you get it in there.
Yeah, but that's basically still in Fairbanks, okay?
It's like 45 minutes out.
It takes you 45 minutes to drive 20 miles?
I don't know. I think it's like 45 minutes. I don't know.
No, that's 28 mile. It's Wickersham. Okay. So that's the last place
I've never actually counted.
There's a couple spots in there even after Wickersham where I get like I'll get dings like
right.
I was gonna say I know there's a lot of pull-offs I know to pull into and I'll get bars of service.
I don't have time to respond back.
In between those locations there is hardly any.
That's true.
You're not gonna find it when you're looking for it. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. A lot of pull-offs have it. I'll say that. But yeah, like you said, if you're not pulling off in there already.
I even noticed last time I went to Prudhoe.
Yeah.
Like I drove to Prudhoe. I had service before Prudhoe several places.
Much of once you're above the pass, there's a lot of service in a lot of places once you're above the pass. I think even maybe on Chandler. Below Chandler, I think you're out of luck till you hit Coldfoot. And then
I think there's
below Coldfoot, you're pretty much sure there are places you might find a bar on the right day.
Are you talking AT&T?
Yes.
So I think I had signal like out what's that lake out there?
Tulik?
Galbraith.
Yeah, there's service.
I had service there.
That's above the pass, right?
And there's that little station there.
Yeah, Galbraith station.
Yeah, I had service in there.
Yeah. No, there's service on much of the upper part of the road up on the slope up there. There are some dead zones, but there's a ridiculous amount of service up there now. It used to be dead from Coldfoot to Dead Horse.
Do you have Verizon?
No, AT&T.
Yeah, that's what I got. Yeah.
I used to drive that road for work all the time, like 3-4 years ago. It was you had service in Fairbanks. If you had GCI, you had service in Coldfoot. If you didn't have GCI at the time, you didn't have service in Coldfoot. They were the first ones that hit Coldfoot. And from Coldfoot to Dead Horse, nothing until you hit Dead Horse. You had 200-mile plus sections of road with nothing. Now there's 200 plus mile road.
It was funny when I worked in Prudhoe, I had better service in Prudhoe than I had in town.
That's because there's fewer people up there using the bandwidth.
Like I remember my phone just slowed down so much.
It's
every
like
time
you have
I
better
came
service
home.
in North Pole than you do in Fairbanks because there's a lot more people. If Fairbanks in the middle of the day and you get on, I've got 5 bars of 5G. Yeah, well, there's also how many thousands of people sitting there with 5 bars of 5G trying to do what you're doing.
Dude, that's how it gets at like 5 o'clock at my house.
Right.
It just everything slows down.
Yeah. Well, and it's like that in any of those places where it's like enough of a population center that it's troublesome because and some of the more remote areas, like I've done work, in Barrow, especially last year when they had all the big fiber cut and everything was on backup systems and whatnot. It's like the cell service would just short out, go away. Like it was like so many people would try to play a YouTube video, it would just glitch and just
you go to
completely
Coldfoot.
gone.
Fastest cell service you ever had in your life.
Oh yeah.
There's 100 people, maybe 100 people there at one time.
Yeah. I was amazed
a lot more now, but
the first time I ever ended up in Coldfoot, I looked down, I was like, how do I have 4 bars? Like, this is insane. Like, but
the first time you went to Coldfoot, you had cell service?
Oh yeah.
That wasn't very long ago, was it?
No.
Dude,
I remember I've been to Coldfoot with no cell service for anybody. There was a pay phone in the little Coldfoot cafe.
Oh
there.
Yeah, I remember people telling me about that.
Yeah.
I remember you used to have to buy Wi-Fi there.
Or you could get a calling card. Yeah, you could buy Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I bought Wi-Fi there at one time.
I think I bought Wi-Fi there too.
I don't know if I ever got a calling card for using the phone, but
I don't even think they sell it anymore.
No, they don't need to. Everybody has cell service.
Can I buy Wi-Fi with my service?
Right.
With my coffee?
But anyway, stay safe, stay in communication. Make sure somebody knows where you're at. That's a big thing too.
It's worth
even if it's just your wife,
100%.
like somebody knows when you're going in, when you're expected to come out. That's a huge thing. Because you'll end up, if you end up running late, let somebody know. That way they don't come looking for you. That's another thing.
Test your inReach too.
Oh, every time.
And Troy, when he was here, my buddy Troy, we were hunting, and there's an area where we go where the inReach doesn't work very well.
Yeah, that's a consideration.
He was like, it was pretty funny to watch him with that because he's used to like right here, right now, having communication. He's like, I'm gonna shoot my wife a message, and I was like, He's like, what do you mean? He was like, dude, it's an inReach, and I was like, yeah, I know. And he just couldn't send her a message.
Right. You hit send and you wait till it goes one day.
I don't know that it ever sent.
Huh.
Yeah,
I think
I've had him
when
fail.
we were done, it might have sent. But an interesting one to that was last year on my birthday, we went out fishing. Carl and I went out fishing, and we poked a hole in the bottom of the boat.
You showed me
like,
that.
oh yeah, I got to post some pictures of that. I actually found some. It's pretty rowdy. That'd be a good one to cover at some point. I think he was like, we got to talk about that. But yeah, we're like, no big deal. We'll just inReach one of our buddies. And it didn't work. And it never sent. And I sent messages out to everybody.
You can be on the wrong side of a hill. You can be under too many trees. There's all kinds of, in Alaska, there's all kinds of things. And honestly, I'll say this, in Alaska, even on a good day, it takes a while. Like even in a good area.
It depends on location and it depends on time of day. The satellites are moving, right?
But I've had it like even where it works perfectly. It just it takes a long time to get a response. So, or to get a message sent out.
We almost like we like arrogantly sent a message, and it I was like, oh no.
Right. Well, the biggest thing is to think about with that is a difference of walking 100 yards can make all the difference in the world on that.
Dude, I was walking out to clearings. I was standing I'm just saying, out in the water to get away. Like I was like,
walk away from the mountains, walk away from the big trees.
Sometimes
get
it's
on
just
top
landmarks.
of a mountain too.
Yeah, exactly.
But then
you might end up with cell service. What in the world?
Right? Yeah, right. I don't need this thing.
The other thing too is don't lax your trauma kit with an inReach. Because I've known individuals that just kind of really were like, oh yeah, I've got an inReach now. I don't have to worry. It's like it can still take hours for them to get there. And that's like sometimes a best case scenario. Like even if you have to hit that SOS button, 1, does it work? Like you just pointed out. But 2, it's like, what if you're sitting there bleeding like crazy and you got to keep yourself alive until they show up to get you out of there?
Well, and like that situation that Dalton explained that one time on the show here, you got to remember that goes out to a call center, right? And those people, God bless them, but they're not familiar with our terrain. You could be
call
like,
center workers.
I'm on, North Slope, Alaska, and they're like, okay, we're calling Juneau.
Is that near Valdez?
Don't worry, we called someone in Juneau for you. They're coming. Like, no.
Yeah,
we're closer to Fairbanks.
Yeah,
like,
yep.
But, and that's like something else we've been doing a lot more is just getting cozier.
Yeah.
we we've been like, some places we'll go hunt, we'll go downriver, and anytime we go downriver in a boat, I take enough stuff for 4 or 5 days and enough stuff to sleep.
Yeah,
I never go down like light if I'm going downstream.
My dad was out with one of his buddies in a boat, and he was like, they would open up something, they needed something. He's like, oh, no problem, I got it. And like every like container, port, everything on that boat was packed with gear.
Yeah,
like you're saying, just like waterproof bags, everything is like, because when you need it, you need it.
Or like James is saying, it can seem redundant, but just
exactly.
be prepared in more ways than one.
Yeah, redundancy is absolutely key in Alaska. Another way to stay safe while you're bear baiting, especially this time of year, if you're out there, and honestly anywhere, because this guy wasn't even bear baiting, unfortunately. There was a news article I wanted to talk about a little bit, and this is a fairly recent thing, and I really hate kind of talking about these kind of articles when it involves an individual losing their life, because it's it's very sad for the family, it's very sad for the community, and it's not something to be, I guess, used for anything other than, I would say in this situation, any kind of public education, but there was an individual, I'm not going to give any names or anything like that here. The family knows about it and everything at this point, but and it looks like he got attacked by what I would say is probably the thing you need to look out for the most in Alaska, all times of year, is a moose. And they are out all winter long. They're out all spring. And this time of year, they are calving their young, especially young, like babies. And they are aggressive. This individual looks like this was down in Homer. I'm reading an article here on USA Today about it. And it appears, based on what I'm reading here, it seems like he was at like a pond in his backyard even. Like it seemed like he was on his own property from the way that they were describing this. And there was a calving moose back there. She had given birth to twins, and he was going down to try and get a picture. And in this part of the state, there's a lot of really thick brush. You can't always see where you're at. He could see from a vantage point. He was just trying to get down towards the pond to get a better picture. This guy's a very experienced wildlife photographer, wildlife enthusiast, journalist. Or no, sorry, not journalist. That was a word I just looked at. This guy was, but very knowledgeable in the area. He lived in the area. And he apparently thought he was in a different area compared to where the moose were, just trying to get a better angle. And Mama keyed in on him and came a running and a kicking.
Man.
And I think it was him and a buddy went down there. And unfortunately, during the charge and the attack, this guy lost his life. For anybody that doesn't understand moose in Alaska, if you're listening to this, if you're new to the state, they're not like whitetails. They're not like a lot of other, even caribou. You could spook a caribou and it's just going to run away from you. Moose are not that way. They're aggressive. And especially this time of year, they are birthing their young. They are hanging up in the thick stuff normally. And guess what? That's where a lot of us like to bear bait, is in the thick stuff, as thick as you can get it. And right now, especially, I think Carl even talked about this, the bears kind of disappearing off baits for a period of time, because they're hunting the calves and they're going after the moose calves.
Doesn't mean they're going very far to do that either. I think people think in their heads that this is an event that's taking place far away from the baits. It just means they're not on the baits.
Exactly.
This could be 100 yards away.
Yeah, down by the slough over here, and it's like, but they might not be hitting your bait as regularly as they were before. That's because they're actually hunting these moose calves, which means Mama's on high alert.
Yep.
So when our hearts go out to the guy that died in this instance. It's a horrible thing, just trying to take a picture of an animal.
Absolutely.
And it's like, you're used to seeing or hearing stories of tourists or people that don't know anything better about animals, but it's like even an individual who's photographed probably hundreds, if not thousands, of moose in his day, or animals in general. You do something where you're going to put yourself in a risky situation like that in tight country. That's kind of the thing with tight country, is you don't know if there's an animal 10 yards away from you, until it's already mad at you. So just keep an eye out for that. make sure, there's ways to stay safe with moose. They're not like, vindictive. They're not out to get you just for no reason. If they are being aggressive towards you, it's because you're in their bubble. Moose have like a safety bubble that they like to be in.
It's not very small either.
It's not small, no. And it can be as large as a whole pond, But the easiest thing to do if you see mama getting aggressive, or just back out of that bubble. Like backing away from bears might not always work. Backing away from certain other animals might not always work. All moose want you to do is go away. That's it.
Quickly.
If you just back up and just give them space and say, all right, yep, you win. Give them the right of way, give them whatever they want. They're happy. And a lot of times when you do we see a lot of these in the winter, where people might have to DLP a moose, whether it's on dog teams or snow machines, situations where you can't just turn around real quick and give them space.
Where you're getting stuck in the snow trying to get away.
Right.
Nobody wants to give up
You're
ground.
on a trail that's only as wide as the track and skis, and there's no turning around for this moose that's trying to walk the other way on the trail. And it's going to charge you, and you're going to have to deal with that situation. Dog teams, same thing. There's not a whole lot of room on those. You're not going to turn that dog team quickly. And dog teams especially, what do they look like?
Wolves.
So they're going to get especially defensive in that situation.
I really press this with my son now because he's about to be 5, and we have moose calve regularly at our house,
right?
And that's something we start paying attention to right about now. And I'm always telling him, I'm like, if you run into a moose outside, you're playing, get underneath the car.
Yeah,
like I'm always trying to give him advice as to what to do to avoid this, because and we've had tons of encounters with them, like in our yard. So I mean,
right. Well, and I don't even live like far out of town, I'm like just past the university. And I had an instance, this wasn't during calving season, but this was, let's see, was it 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago. Me and the wife just ran to like Fred Meyer's real quick on a weekend and came home, and I had it was whatever the year was, we had all that crazy snow. It was like the snow, the rain, the snow, whether it was 2 or 3 years ago, I'm not sure now.
I don't remember.
But it was a couple years back.
Tons of snow, probably.
Tons of snow. The driveway was piled up, 4 feet high on both sides. And this mama was in our driveway with a calf and would not budge. She wouldn't go back into the snow. She wouldn't go, because we live right up against some woods where it's just all, thousands of acres of wide open. And she would not leave. And I tried everything I could. I yelled at her. I threw snowballs at her. I was trying to get her to move, and she was just not having it. She was charging the truck, and like they're not afraid of anything.
No.
And and we backed out and gone for a little drive around the block, 5 minutes. I was like, oh, let her clear out. Like she's just in there browsing. Like she'll clear out. Came back 5 minutes later, still there. Tried again, wouldn't move. Went away for 10 minutes, came back, still there. I'm like, goodness, like this moose has just made itself at home. And I have a pretty skinny driveway, so I couldn't like scoot past her to get inside to, get anything that would be loud enough or scary enough to make her go away. But like that can be a dangerous situation too, just being in town, being dumb around moose, there's a lot of people that think they want to go touch one. Like, don't do that. Like these things will break your legs. They can kick sideways. Like they're not like a horse where they can just kick backwards. They can kick almost any direction. And you got to be careful, but especially this time of year with how aggressive they are during the calving season, be careful with that. Because nobody wants that. Nobody wants to hear about that. Nobody wants to lose a loved one to that, so, and I don't know. I know you've even talked about it during calling season where you were stopping somewhere to call for predators. And
if you call enough, you're going to run into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had it happen a ton, but I mean, that's what, the average person is probably not going to have that happen, but you go out, you're spending more time in being out in that stuff, and that they don't want to give up ground generally when the snow's deep, and you're walking where it's easy to walk, and they're walking where it's easy to walk, and they move a lot faster in it than we do. And usually have snowshoes on, and you're clunky, and you got gear and a rifle, and and the other thing to consider is that like a DLP in that situation is not always just cut and dry. That's something you really want to avoid,
right?
Because that could be a lot of paperwork.
You got to stop, and you got to stop what you're doing and take care of that moose. Take out the meat,
and
turn it in,
and then do all the paperwork, and then potentially take law enforcement out there to investigate the scene to see if it was a justified DLP situation, and they will go out there and look at everything. They'll look at the tracks. They'll look at everything.
Yep, just like a murder scene.
Yeah,
they have the time and the resource to do it. So
exactly,
and that's if you're going to be spending a lot of time outside, it's good to pay attention to. And I'm always doing it. I park and I go in somewhere. I'm looking for tracks. I mean, because if you're reckless, you could shoot a moose a week. Self-defense in the wintertime if you're out poking around on the wrong spot, and you just can't be shooting everyone that you have a bad encounter with.
Well, and especially in bad years like that. I mean, that's not during calving, but I mean, they're trying to walk easier too. So if you're on a trail, guess what? They're going to use that trail too. Mm-hmm. Like, why not? It's
I'm terrified of moose.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I go into bear baits, I'm not even, honestly, I'm not thinking about bears. I'm thinking about moose.
Well, and that was kind of the whole point of bringing this up is like, a lot of people I feel don't equate the fact that everything lives here full time year round. So like I've met people that say, oh man, I couldn't hunt bears. I don't like bears.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be around bears. And I'm like, you moose hunt? Well, yeah.
That makes no sense.
If there's moose, there's bears. Like it's not like the bears are gone for moose season and you're like, don't have to deal with them. Like, no, there's still bears there.
You like food? Yeah, but I don't believe in grocery stores.
Well, it's like, it's not like a video game, right? Where it's like certain things load and other things disappear. It's like, no, like, so you're walking into your bear bait, especially some of these, really nice thick areas that you might want to go into. If you're beating a trail down and it's like a more established trail now, and these moose have freshly born calves. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you run into one at all. Like, and I've seen, I can honestly say every single bait I've ever set has had a moose with a calf on it. Every single one. Well, maybe not with me in person, but I've got pictures of them coming through.
I think some people don't consider associating moose with bear bait sites. And I mean, not in all cases, but often enough, you're clear cutting stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everything's been browsed on that's at head level for a moose. You have the right like foliage, right? You're cutting stuff, new food down.
Right.
And you're creating new smells. And a lot of people don't realize like that's a lot of what prompts those visits and that hanging around.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people think a lot of it's the scent, and they will eat dog food and do weird
moose
stuff.
Moose like anise?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
They like the smell.
Oh, they do.
I've had them
it's a
specifically show up to. Yeah. Not every bait that has it, but I've had them specifically show up to that.
Gotcha.
And like nibble at it or whatever. They also like I've baited with like old bread from bakeries or whatever, and I had one that had all these nuts and oats and stuff in it.
Oh, right.
They chowed down on that.
Oh yeah,
like they ate it. Like I thought a bear had been there. Bears hadn't hit yet. Moose ate the greasy bread.
I had. What's those?
They're a big old bowl too, actually. But
the pastries with like the almonds on top.
Yeah,
like it's got the anyway. So I threw like a trash bag of that stuff out one time, and the moose ate it, not the bears. I'm like, what the heck?
No, I stopped baiting. I stopped using the bread because I used it in several places and ended up with moose eating it.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, forget this. Like, and I've had baits with no moose on them whatsoever too. But
the funny thing about using bread is when the squirrels come down while you're sitting there, and it's like super dark. If you're in like a canopied area, late at night, 3 a.m, whatever, like. And then all of a sudden, it's so dark you can't even see the squirrel, but you just see this piece of bread floating up a tree.
Slice of bread moving along the forest floor.
And then they get all hopped up on all the sugar at the bait, and then they're just chasing themselves around a tree, and it sounds like a chainsaw. That's a good time.
I love when they just like they got something so big in their mouth they can't even see where they're going.
Right. But yeah, so just be careful, guys. We don't like to hear about anybody getting hurt or worse. So be careful while you're out there. Have fun. Be successful. Enjoy the state. And with that, let's take a break real quick. Hammer Bullets produces what we at the Northern Hunter consider to be the most premium and best working monolithic bullets on the market today. These bullets are easy to load, extremely accurate, and best of all, they're always in stock and ready to ship. The guys at Hammer designed them so that after penetrating the hide of an animal, it sheds its petals, initiating a massive energy dump while retaining the rear shank for maximum penetration. These bullets are built with 100% focus on how they perform on game, and their proprietary designs produce great BCs with specialized pressure grooves for amazing inherent accuracy and speed. They have a minimum expansion velocity of 1,800 feet per second, which allows for long-range shots, but with no maximum velocity, making them perfect for every cartridge from your granddaddy's old 30-30 to the high-velocity round like the Weatherby 3378 without having to worry about your bullet failing. To view their expansive selection and find the perfect match for your hunting needs, go to hammerbullets.com and use discount code TheNorthernHunter to drop the hammer on your next adventure. So, since we talked about a little bit of the delay that can happen at the beginning of bear baiting season, and honestly, like this year, we had pretty good water, like before things got too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about what you and I got into, Chris, not too long ago. We were out getting silly, chasing some beavers around, which is a great way to spend time in the spring, I think.
It's a great way to explore Alaska, that's for sure.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, it's challenging though.
Work the kinks out of the boats.
My goodness. Yeah, no, that was fun. The thing with that I liked about it was just getting out, man. Like, I mean, it's just like it's cool to like actually like go set baits and stuff like that early, and we all like tromping through snow to set bear baits, but like when you're actually going out and you can put crosshairs on an animal like that early in the season, that's pretty cool. I like that.
It's a good additive to the already activities. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it benefits your bear baiting too, because that's perfect bear bait too.
Yeah, so, they're getting more and more expensive if you're like buying them. Like a lot of these guys that sell them, I mean, it's expensive to go get a beaver.
Yeah,
I mean, when you think about the time that goes into it and the fuel, and I mean,
right. Well, and guys are keyed into the fact that people want them for more than just a few people in town that are actually interested in eating them. People want them to hunt with, and so now that's getting that's really picking up.
Yep. But they're a great resource animal. I mean, my goodness. I mean, like the hide on that one that I shot was pristine. I mean, it was just great, you know, and I'm sure my wife's
one was beautiful.
My wife's going to enjoy making something out of that, I'm sure. Or maybe I'll throw it on the wall in here. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet.
I think you should put it on the wall in here so we can,
it's a big
appreciate it.
It's a nice one. I like it. Is
that the one that's full of holes or?
No, this one was a one shot. No, the one that's full of holes is actually in the Tanana somewhere, but I think it probably made it that far. I don't know.
You know, I was talking
Grayling got to eat too.
Grayling got to eat too. There we go.
We hired a new guy recently, and I was talking to him. He was shooting beavers, and he said he was shooting. First time he tried to kill one, he tried to do it with the 22. Like I asked you guys about, like, can I do it with the 22?
You can.
And he goes, he may have been exaggerating a little bit, but I don't think it was much. He's a pretty, honest guy. But he, really, I assume he's honest, but anyhow, he said he shot it with a 22, like from the boat or whatever, or from land or wherever he was. And he said the thing swam over, climbed up, and he like walked over to it, stuck the 22 in the back of the head and pulled the trigger, and it swam away. Like ran down in the thing and swam away.
They are
like
a muscle.
Obviously the whatever bullets he was using didn't want to penetrate that skull even at that distance.
So
he had his 243 with him, I guess. So the next beaver he saw, he shot it in the head. He said it didn't have a head anymore.
Yeah. So I'll say this, and I'm sure you've got story after story, but just from my limited experience doing this, that first one, I hit it in what I believe was the neck because I was aiming right for the head and it wasn't very far away. I know I saw a red splash when it dove back down. And it dove and swam. What would you say that was, Chris? Like 300 yards, something like
probably,
that?
Probably, honestly, easily 300 yards.
Yeah.
Probably by the time we caught up to him, probably nearing like a quarter mile.
Probably. It was a ways. And I, like, to the point, I wasn't sure if it was a different beaver or not, but it was definitely the same one. And unfortunately, that one ended up getting tangled up in some stuff, and there were some issues getting to it before the current took it away. But I put, 3 or 4 more rounds in that thing in the body. Well, it was climbing up on the bank, and I had my 22 mag with 30 grain VMAXs, and which I've changed since then.
Are those the hollow points?
They're polymer tip.
Okay.
They're fragmenting. They're supposed to be varmint rounds.
Would you prefer like a solid out of a 22?
For
like a
beaver
heavy
hunting?
solid. Yeah.
The biggest thing is it's kind of like your buddy was saying. They're like bears. You can shoot them deader than a doornail, but that doesn't mean they're going to be dead right there.
Right.
I mean, they might run off. You know,
I mean,
it's
I've never
the
shot a
same
bear that's
thing.
run
I mean,
further than 50 yards, but
and that's like
I'm not saying that it won't happen to me one day, but
yeah, and that's like this one. Like it was dead, rolled off the bank after 5 rounds
and
or something like that.
They succumb. It's just how and
but
when
it
and
was
where.
still like it was definitely dead, but it was still flopping around enough that it pushed itself into some super thick trees and stuff like that. And as we were trying to get around stuff and through stuff and whatnot, it slipped out of that even and into the main channel, and it was just gone. There was nothing we could do.
I wonder if it's hard to double lung them because unless you like shoot them crossways.
Well, I'll say this.
You know, if you're getting one lung stuck,
the more you do it, the more you're just like baffled at.
Okay, I mean, I'm just throwing stuff out there because I haven't done it.
No. It's and I don't have a solution to it. So I mean, like we've been doing it, and I mean, like I live for this, and I've never found a good way to kill them. I will say this. So I run that set. I've been running that 17 WSM. I kind of jumped into that at the end of last beaver season.
Right. Yeah.
So I actually got my first body check, like single shot kill with a VMAX the other day.
Really? On a beaver?
Yeah. And it was a pinhole in and an absolute explosion and like dead on impact.
So what you're saying is you need to use hammers.
Yeah.
Probably, right, James? Right?
I mean,
did they make a varmint, like a fragmenting? Like
no, not anymore.
Something that deep? Okay, yeah. I didn't know if they did or not.
I mean, and you can just pick your bullet for what they have, but they don't make like a varmint fragmenting one, no.
Yeah, they should. We should talk to them about that.
I mean, and that, like, I feel like that was luck.
It could be.
Because I've never seen them succumb to body shots well at all. It's always, you literally have to hit them like in the head. You got to hit them in the control room. And you got to think about where, and the boat's moving, you're moving, they're moving. There's a lot there. That's a very humbling animal to chase.
Well, and that's like the second one, the one I actually got to take home. With a straight dome shot.
And I told you, I was like, dude, just take your time.
Yeah.
Just take your time because, and you had that like dialed. That was done right there.
Yeah. And like so much so that there were fragments of skull like in the hide when we skinned it out.
Yeah, and adhered to the hide.
One thing I wouldn't like about that is like beaver skulls are really cool when they're cleaned.
But
clean them like a bear skull.
But if you don't shoot them in the skull, you might not get the skull.
Yeah,
can't have your cake and eat it too.
Can't boil the skull if it goes down river.
So what if you shot in the body with like a 243?
I mean, well, you're getting into what you're getting into with everything that you're trying to preserve hide on.
Right. I'm just saying, like, would that be?
I'm sure you're going to pummel that thing. But then the other thing too is like retrieving it.
Right.
It'd be like beaver hunting is the hardest hunting I've ever done. Next to predator hunting.
Yeah.
Hands down.
It was challenging, that's for sure.
Your success rate is in the gutter. I mean, it's
for finding them or harvesting them.
Oh,
when you find them,
that's the problem. Is you just see them constantly and killing them and getting them in the boat.
Because the hard part about predator hunting is part of it is finding them. Right.
Well, yeah, but I mean, and like, dude, beavers are they are magnificent, and they're just a muscle. When you think about what they are, they're just the whole thing's I mean, they're so hardy. Well, if you think about if you handle a beaver. I can't even think of something that compares to that, like hide-wise. A coyote would be the first, like a good primed out coyote I would compare to like a beaver. I mean, and that's
like
they are just so hardy.
Like just muscle.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, if you were hanging off a building and you were like, help me, and there was a coyote hide and a beaver hide, I'd grab the beaver hide and throw you the other end.
Yeah, I mean, they are a heavy duty hide, that's for sure.
I mean, it is when you're handling them.
Yeah.
I mean, there is so much substance to that, and I think, I think that stuff slows rounds down, and it's always finding that like balance in. You could shoot them with a 300 Win Mag, right? Then what are you working with at the end of the day,
right?
So like a slow 243. Punch a hole in and out without fragmenting would probably be ideal.
Yeah, and I mean
Could
the
be,
only
yeah.
thing with
Could
like
be. You know, I haven't done it once again.
Yeah.
the other thing with beaver hides, like when you stretch them and dry them,
Mhm.
like if you nick the hide when you're fleshing or anything, that grows, right? Because that hole will actually grow as it
And
dries.
you can sew them, but
They don't
Depending on what you're doing
well on
with it,
beavers.
depending on what you're doing with
It's
it.
a very shallow fur.
Well, the thing I'll point out too with the toughness of them, not only is that hide thick, but like when you skin an animal out and it almost takes a different shape, especially small game.
Oh, yeah.
You skin them out and like they're these big
Mhm.
fluffy things.
Yeah.
Something, and then you skin them out and they're like, oh, that's a little dinky thing. Beavers are the
I
exact
know.
same shape. Like it's insane.
It's
like there was-
perfectly round.
like you're taking the skin off and they're not changing shape at all. There's no lack of any muscle anywhere. It's insane. It's not body fat. It's not fluff. It's not anything. It's just muscle.
No, I've done
That
with
one you
beavers,
shot
just
was
not
like 60
hunting them,
pounds, dude.
with
Yeah,
them.
it was a good one.
What do you think? 60? Am I exaggerating?
I would say at least 50. I don't know about.
I felt like it was heavier
it
than
might
that.
be.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's all the dog food I've been lugging around and not getting a break.
Right. No, it was a good beaver though, because when we stretched it out on that board, I need to post a picture of that actually. I'm so bad at that. When we
Better
stretched
at
it
it
out on
than me.
that board, it was like it almost covered the board. Like it was edge to edge on that board, on that piece of plywood.
Did you see that one that I shot?
That one.
That thing was a month. That thing was a toad.
Yeah. So you guys, came back with some from your trip. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely not like we usually do, but
Right.
and that's that whole thing too. Like, when you're filling the time,
Mm-hmm.
it's a nice additive to a trip.
Kind of like burbot lines.
Yeah, and that's it's like anything. The more you find to fill that extra time with, it's just that much more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Like bear hunting, when we're bear hunting on water, I mean we're burbot fishing, we're beaver hunting. It ends June 10th.
Yep.
Most
Yeah.
places, right? And the other thing too is, so those hides are starting to get iffy now.
Yeah.
Because when you're shooting them, like when you and I first went out a couple weeks ago,
it was cold.
That's the time to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Right at ice off.
Hide, yeah.
And you see them some of them still holding out, but you start seeing that quality diminish pretty rapidly.
I would say once you get into those 70-degree days, and I mean all the ice is gone. I mean it makes sense.
Again, you look at guys that like trap them.
Mm-hmm.
They're right about now. You're kind of getting to the close of that,
right?
And I mean, and you can still. I mean, I'm still harvesting them if I see them,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, you get meat out of it, you get bait out of it, you get caster.
Yeah.
So I mean, and there's no shortage of them. There's a reason why they let us shoot them.
Right. Well, and they just opened it up. How long ago do you know how long ago that was? It was several years now, but it was.
I feel like it's like last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's not been very long.
Yeah, but it was pretty like abrupt. It was like you cannot shoot them at all in this area, this area, this area. I think there were some units where you could, but then all of a sudden it was wide open.
And you've always been able to shoot them. Just it's been pretty restricted. Like
right, yeah.
There's
like 20B was all shut down for the most part. Like,
and we needed that opener. I mean, even you like when you run waterways like boating or doing like really getting like deep in it, you really can see where they're starting to.
Well, they're destructive.
They are very destructive.
Like, and I believe so. I watched a Fish and Game kind of like a seminar about it when they were first going to open this up to firearms, and it was like 3 hours long of them talking about how beavers have moved into different areas of the state that they never used to inhabit before, and they're moving north, and like way more north than they used to be, and redirecting rivers and changing water flow patterns and runoff and everything. And I believe that's a big reason, is because with just trapping, don't get me wrong, trappers clean house. Like when you're a good beaver trapper, like I know guys that clean house on those things.
I think I'm going to get more into that too.
Yeah. But it's like you open it up to firearm, and maybe it's not going to change the game entirely, but it'll add a little bit more harvest, right? Now you've got the trappers and the guys that just want to go out there.
It's adding a lot more harvest.
Yeah.
You're seeing it. If you're on social media scrolling, there's a lot of guys getting in on this.
It was funny. There was a group earlier in the year that did a training event for people that live in the villages way up north, like Wainwright and those. because like teaching them how to harvest beavers and use beavers and like skin them out and what they're good for, because the beavers are moving so far, like they've never had to do that before.
Well, and they don't, and the other thing is like beavers don't have, I mean, think of like the abundance of fox, right? The value's down. The fur market is bad. And beavers are a ton of work. I mean, it's not only hard. I mean, it's hard to even get out set steel for them and getting, and you're really, when you're on foot, you're sifting through a lot of stuff, a lot of like waterways you can access from the road, and you clean them out pretty quick. And it's a ton of work to process beavers. Yeah. It's a lot to flesh them. And they don't flesh like other critters either.
Right. It was more like blubber than just regular fat. Like it was like crazy.
Yeah, and like different guys will clean skin them, and guys will like knee flesh them, and some guys that are really good with a draw knife they'll flesh them with a draw knife. But I like fleshing them with a knife. But all of it takes long, and then you have to board them. Yeah, and you got to stretch them, and they take about 7 days to dry. Yep. Usually, I mean, there's
a lot of moisture in those things.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, they're a lot of work. Yeah, but they're fun. It's one more thing to do.
The one thing I'll say is like when you were using the draw knife on that one, I was over at your house, and it was just amazing how like it just held on like crazy. And part of that might have been the preservation method I used. I made the mistake of freezing the hide between the time that it was harvested, and it was skinned that night, but I froze it to keep it from going bad.
If you could freeze them flat, that's the best way to do it without rolling them up, and then they do flesh really well. A lot of guys will take like their draw knife and they'll keep one half of it dull and one half of it razor sharp, and they'll use that draw knife like we were doing with the knife, like a fleshing knife, right? And so you have one side that's dull, one side that's sharp. So you're taking your strokes. Yeah. And as you're finishing that stroke out, you're getting into the dull side of that draw knife, right? Right. There's a lot of different ways that guys do it. Yeah. But the knee fleshing them is the quick way to do it. You can get cruising. Right.
But yeah, and those things, I mean, from what you were explaining to me earlier, they don't last long after the kill.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get into them, if you at least want to skin them and get them, and that's kind of a nice thing too. If you because they are so much work, get them skinned, right, and then get those hides frozen, and then when you have a day to devote to fleshing them out, then pull them out, and it takes about 2 days about a day and a half to thaw a beaver from the, and you don't want to do that like, you don't want to rapid thaw that if you can avoid it. You want to do that in a cool spot and let it, and you don't want to dry it. You don't want to accelerate that dry time either if you got a lot of water in there. Right. Cause you just breed, you create that environment for that bad bacteria. Right. And that's how you start getting slippage and, like any fur. Yep. But beavers have a very special thing about them where I don't know what it is. I don't know. And it's weird too, because I mean, they eat wood, right? Like they're not eating like dead. It's super weird, but
they're so greasy.
They are greasy.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to make sure you take care of them quick. And that was the mistake that I made with freezing mine. Was I thought it's just this little animal, it'll thaw out quick. No, that hide fat that's in there, and because mine still had its winter coat on, it just insulated it so good, it just would not thaw. Like it took all day to thaw out, and that was what messing with it and trying to get it to unroll a little bit but not pull the hairs out, and then maybe set that in some sunlight and let it get thawed out a little bit more, and it just kind of,
you really got to just get them in a cool spot where you don't have you just got to get them in a cool spot, and the other thing is freezing them flat and not rolling them off.
Right. Yeah. That was the goof,
which can be hard to do too, because who has that kind of freezer space unless you're devoted to this, right?
So one big issue too, James, though, and this can happen with any fur-bearing animal from bears on down, but any animal really, but it can really happen with the fur bearers, is when you take that hide and you roll it up and you shove it in a freezer, and the middle of that hide doesn't freeze
Right.
sometimes for, how, and
Right.
it starts to slip before it freezes.
It'll spoil in the freezer.
In the middle of the wherever it's rolled
we
up
were
in the
talking
middle of
about that.
Uh-huh.
I've seen guys do that with a lot of game meat
Yeah.
too. They'll incorporate like fats from other game animals, and there's a lot that don't merge well.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of fish like that too that don't keep well frozen.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of fish.
Lots.
It's like 6 months max in the freezer, and it's mush.
Yeah, and then there's other ones that like do really well.
Yeah.
You done much trapping at all, Chris? Of anything? Snaring?
I did. I've done quite. I snared a lot for a few years, but I mean, the intrigue of culling got me.
You ever
quick.
run up on a coyote, fox, whatever, frozen?
Oh, all the
Right.
yeah. I mean,
You ever
a
find them
lot
slipped
back in
inside the hide a little bit from dying, and then before they freeze completely, like starting to slip a little bit inside because the hide keeps
like when warmer temps.
Typically, yeah.
Yeah.
Usually never enough to ruin the hide, but you'll start to see that green color on the inside.
A lot of guys fight that like late season, like wolves and stuff, green belly and different stuff.
Right,
Because
right.
I mean, they die,
Especially when
and
they
then
die,
don't
land.
freeze.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They freeze, but it takes long enough that hide.
And then the problem is that's not frozen, right? But everything else is frozen,
Right.
So for you to get to that to start processing, it's like what James saying, and you like guys lose a lot of wolf hides like that too. They hang those wolves up, and that bacteria hasn't really subsided. It's just accelerated that whole time, and then you're waiting to be able to get into that animal, and you're like.
Yeah.
Like waiting for water to boil. And then you get green belly and I dealt with a lot of green belly when I was snaring.
I'm just interested because I haven't done it for years, but I did it with my dad a lot growing up, and that was stuff we saw.
It's something I want to do more.
I've thought about it. I'd love to run a trap lane again, but
I love snaring.
Oh yeah, I mean snaring is easy.
It's cheap.
It's easy, relatively so.
It'll catch up on you too, because I mean I remember
you build your own snares.
Yeah, oh yeah. I had a swager and all that stuff, and I remember when I was single, I had a shed, this place that I lived, and I remember just having so much stuff hung up in there, just way more work than I could handle. Where I just had to like pump the brakes. I'm like, okay. I think one time we went out. I think I caught 9 fox in one night.
Wow!
In snares, like.
Yeah,
pretty close to home.
Yeah, I think predators are going to pick back up here.
You know what I'm noticing is the rabbits.
That's what I mean.
Are really?
Oh, they're everywhere.
This is normal.
Yeah, it's just the way it goes. But I mean, when you drive down the road and you see 5 rabbits, you go, huh?
When you think about like these cycles,
yeah, exactly.
You only see so many in a lifetime. This is the second one I've seen being here.
Yeah,
Really?
This is the second decline and dip, and then. Like I'm starting to watch this in real time again.
Yeah.
I mean,
what would you say was the most beavers you've ever shot? Like in one trip? Like whether it be
between all of us?
Sure. Yeah.
Like
how much work did you build up for your
guys? The boat getting like unsafe.
Really?
Well, you got
sitting on beavers,
dude. You got to think if you shoot 5 beavers, right? The good sized beavers. That's like throwing a fat dude in the boat with you guys. Right? It's like taking another passenger.
Yeah.
You do that 2 more times. That's 500 pounds.
Right.
Right. Like
that's true. Yeah.
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had nights where. Yeah. I've had days where I've skinned all day and fleshed all day. And I mean, that's nothing. There's guys, I have buddies. Well, guy we know. That's just no joke when it comes to this stuff. You should have him on too. Dude,
I would like to.
I'm going to bug him. I mean, because I bet that would be, he's,
you ever,
for a young guy too, he's got some impressive stuff under his belt. But I mean, some of these guys, I got a bunch of buddies that they catch. I mean, they'll come home with 20 beavers in one trip, and they're trapping and stuff. But I mean, that is, dude, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
I think we've probably seen. I know Carl, when we've had a passenger, 15 beavers in a night shooting, and like not a very long night. That's not hard to do. I mean, usually it's where you're at geographically and the weight you're taking on. It's where you got to call it.
Right. Yeah. whether you're up against the dark hours.
And you have to think when you're trapping and you're going back and you're checking traps, right? Say you're snaring beavers or whatever, or you're throwing like shore sets or whatever.
Mhm.
You're submerged leg holds or drowning sets. You're going out and you're retrieving all your stuff and you're getting out of there. But when you're shooting and like as the night's progressing and you've got like all that, it's pretty messy, all that blood, and then stuff's going pretty quick. Those things aren't cooling down. That's where you can have some hide loss.
Right.
That's like where you want to get home. It's
right.
You could shoot as many as you wanted, but you get to a point where it's time to call it. Like,
well, explain a little bit about that. Like, what's the process for anybody that's never hunted beavers before? What's like the process of going out, finding them, shooting them, getting them in, getting them home? Like, what's that look like?
I mean, well, you got a little insight to this now too. I think a boat's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask about that. Is it possible to do it otherwise?
It is. So you could go on foot. You're just, and I mean, I'm sure you could get into some pockets where you could go on foot. Like you get into some narrow waterways, absolutely, where you got slow current, and maybe you dunk one right, and it goes to the bottom. Yeah, and you can maybe comb the bottom with like a dip net.
Yeah,
gotcha.
And you're gonna get your beavers, right? And it might be a little work, but I think a guy could do pretty good if you were in some good country, right?
Yeah.
But for covering ground,
right.
A boat is the way to do it, and like a pretty utilitarian boat, I would say.
Yeah,
something that you can get into like the sloughs and the water, and
yeah. I was gonna say the hard part with doing it in like on foot, like walking sloughs and whatnot, because I've been trying that too,
retrieving them.
Well, it's retrieving them.
We've done a little of that too. Like, like we're hunting.
Yeah, you and I were out there doing that.
And it's fun.
But the thing with that is, so one, retrieving them, because they either float or they sink. There's no in between. So, and I would say most of the time they sink. But you know, they like that one I netted up, the last one. That one floated. I hit it in the head and it just rolled over.
And they usually do float when you head shoot them.
Right.
And that's where a lot of the time and it's interesting too, because when you body shoot them, when you injure them, they'll go to shore and they'll try to get out of the water, and you'll actually see they'll start running into the woods sometimes when they're like that, which is good too if you can wait them out.
Yeah,
a lot of guys will see them, they're like head out of the water going for land, and they'll start just throwing a volley on them. And the best thing to do is give them a minute, let them get up on ground enough,
spot them on ground.
And I don't know if you've seen this yet, but they'll clear, like they can jump. So they can be like 15 feet up on the shoreline and they'll spring back into the water, like, and they'll dart like 15 feet in the air.
Well, it's like that
not
one
high,
I shot,
but like directionally,
right?
They'll just jam back for water, like the one you shot. I mean, he did some
acrobatics,
high dive, some.
But I was gonna say that the other thing with trying to walk for them is, so one, wearing waders is a good idea because you're probably going to be going in after them.
Absolutely. Or have them handy.
Have a big net in the truck ready to go, or with you, depending on how thick it is, what you're walking through. But that right there is the harder part, because the time of year that we're out there doing this, it's dry. Everything's melted off and the sun's hitting it. It's not quite alive yet, so the grass isn't green and lush and just folding over. It's crinkling, it's cracking. It's hard to walk quietly through that stuff along those shorelines. And they are keyed in.
Yep.
Because you sound like really the only other, or not the only other thing, but one of the main things that is their predator, which is bears. You know, bears will go after beavers all the time.
Bears and wolves really go to work.
And so you're walking down this dry grass and dry sticks and dry all this other stuff. And as careful as you might want to be, you're going to make some noise. And so unless you can get, I don't know, onto some bear without any kind of dead grass, dead leaves, dead twigs. And so you got to be really slow, really intentional. And that really kind of kills how much ground you can cover, at least from what I've done.
It's tough.
But it's, because I mean, even if you see them, you can see them down there and you're just trying to get in closer for a 100-yard shot or something like that. By the time you get around this bend and close that 100-yard gap, they're gone. They're looking right at you and they're gone. Something
else I'd say is like a big snagging hook
and
an ice rod. Keep it handy with you. It's the last
Ryan Lamp,
means of retrieval that you want to do. What's that?
Did Ryan Lampers that beaver out of there?
Oh yeah, that dude. That's what that made me think of. Yeah, when I watched that, that was cool. I thought that was pretty neat. I've done that with beavers too. But you're gonna trash hide. You got to think that's a very heavy animal, right? So you're putting all that weight on that hide. You got to get that hook out. But at the end of the day, if you can get your critter, then another thing you got to consider is it's wooded. There's a lot of down timber and stuff because you're in those areas where they're going to work on the forest, right? Mm-hmm. So all that stuff's on the bottom, like that one area that you were trying to shoot that one on land.
Oh, dude.
It's like all that timber in the water, you know?
That's why we couldn't get to it.
Well, yeah. And so like, if you're trying to snag a beaver on the bottom of that, you're going to be snagging trees too. Mm-hmm. But if you know where they're kind of going to flow in the current, you can try that as a last ditch effort. Mm-hmm. And this water's pretty swift too when they hit.
Alaskan water is. I mean, in general,
they're gone,
and it's way more swift underneath than it looks on top.
Oh yeah,
that always is. I mean, and that's people doubt the Tanana all the time. They're like, oh, it doesn't look that.
Well, and you got to think with those
people die in the Tanana every year because of that. You know, and it's like, it's a horrible thing, but it's something to be aware of.
People succumb to the China too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll say even that one, you know, and when you're riding on top on a little floaty through town, it might not feel that fast, but underneath,
it happens often enough to remind all of us that it's no joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, a boat's going to be your gig for doing this. That's pretty much where it.
All right. Well, I've needed to buy a boat for other things, so I guess it's just time.
Just add one more thing to the list of why you need it.
Well, and the cool thing about it is if you get on a lot of rich beaver water is rich in burbot too. So you do your set lines.
Well, there might be bears around then too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you do it right, there's some places we hunt where you get all three going on, and it's pretty cool.
That makes for a good spring.
I mean, and if you're like staying out to hunt baits too, it makes it a lot easier to stay out. It beats like walking in and sleeping in the back of the pickup.
But,
I know some spots like for that would actually be you couldn't get in there with a boat at all. And you could walk, or you could ride and walk, come back. You know, maybe ride, walk an area, then go back to
like
the
a wheeler.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of beavers in there because we used to have problems with them damming stuff up and go in there in the winter and trap them out. And never seemed to get all of them. And we actually at this spot we had a bait, and it'd be like every week we'd go in there and you couldn't get you'd be trying to find a way around the pond that they made that was like 2 feet the week before, and now it's 5-6 feet deep because they kept damming it up.
Yep. Well, and the thing too is they'll move around.
Yeah.
So the beavers you were trapping, a month later might not be the
right.
first
Well,
original bunch. You may have gotten all those
in this
ones.
stretch of area. Who knows how many beavers are there? Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because beavers, it's like my dad has a Far Side comic on his bulletin board in his office, cut out or whatever from a newspaper or something, and it's a beaver sitting on a log, looking at a big open field with a river flowing through it, and it says "Damn the world." Oh no, I think it says "Damn it all."
Yeah. Looking at that field, that can't exist.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
something that can happen too is you start out and you don't see any beavers, and you're like, well, this isn't a good beaver year. It's like anything else, and you give in.
Well, I mean, there's areas where there aren't hardly any beavers, but once they move in,
well, so there's like spots where you'll go season opener of like breakup, and you won't see beavers, or you'll shoot a bunch of beavers, and you're like, we shot everything in here. And a lot of guys still go back like a week later and they'll be like, man, we just smoked this area. And you go back in like 2 weeks later and it'll just it's like repopulated.
Yeah.
That's interesting how that works.
It's not that they've regenerated, but they move in a lot.
So the beaver real estate market is
it's
wide
interesting
open.
how that works.
It's good.
Because you'll
good
have
market.
areas too.
Bidenomics is working well for that.
Where there's 2 beavers alive, right? And somebody comes and traps them and then you won't see beavers there for years. I've seen that too.
Yeah.
I would say it probably depends a lot on the waterway that it's attached to primarily. And because
how remote it is off the main waterway.
Because I was going to say,
things, right?
I have seen beavers in places you would never expect to see beavers. Like one area I was wheelering.
Wickersham Dome?
Way up. No, I haven't seen any there, but I've seen some just about as high as that.
I've seen them on the road over by Wickersham.
And they are like there's no sloughs, there's no ponds, there's no nothing for a while. You're up in elevation, and there's just this young beaver walking down the trail. Like, and I thought it was a porcupine at first, or
Right.
or something.
There's a spot out by my
And-
house where they had to rebuild a whole road because this beaver went up into the hills and blocked this tiny section of creek and turned it into a freaking lake. And it went over this road and washed this whole road out.
Yeah.
And like,
But like something like that, because when they're young and they get kicked, they got to go look for their own waterway. And if they're in a spot like that, maybe a faraway pond or something that they've kind of claimed as their own, you go in there, you trap it out. Might be a little while before another beaver finds that particular pond. But if you're tied into like the Tanana or the Chena or anything like that, where there's a lot of them traveling back and forth and the plentiful population, it's not surprising at all that it would take 1, maybe 2 weeks for them to find that empty house.
like you can't shoot them in the Chena there, right?
Right.
But it's like anything, they overpopulate and they need resource, right? So they
What's the section you can't shoot them?
I think is it below I think it's from the confluence of the Little Chena.
So I believe as it's written, or maybe this is just as it's like functionally understood, basically the bridge on Nordale.
Yeah.
From the bridge
basically the confluence of the Little Chena.
It's the confluence of the Little Chena.
From the bridge on Nordale to where it hits the Tanana is off limits.
Is
in between
anything
that
in that
section.
drainage river?
So that's the
itself.
part we have to convene with the council on, because I'm not sure how we can get back to that. I saw like that, and that's what the question I've had too is like, so that section of Chena is off limits, right?
So why
But what
the whole
about
section?
like all residential areas and stuff?
I know,
I'm
but
sure,
there's a ton of that
like,
area in there that's not residential at all.
Yeah, but it's probably an easy boundary for them to make that people understand.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But and
there's one area
a lot of
that
that flows through military land too. That goes through Wainwright.
There's one area that I checked on like some years ago that was open. That's kind of connected to that. For trapping.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not sure if that applies to trapping or just firearms. I'm not 100% sure on that. I wouldn't want to.
I don't know.
But I do want to find out if it's the offshoots of that as well. I don't know that part. We'll have to convene with the council on that one.
Usually,
Knights of
those
the
kinds of
Round
rules are drainage specific,
the knight.
right?
The knight of the round table when he has time.
Got a whole round table all to himself.
Something else I was going to mention about like what they'll start doing this time of year too is they start nipping each other. Like you were telling me
yours
about
had
that little
scars.
Yep.
Yeah.
They'll start nipping each other and stuff. And
What, mating season or something?
Yep. And I think they're kind of like sizing each other up for territory and stuff. So
yeah.
Something that I was going to mention that's kind of funny too. You see a lack of them. Like you'll do a run somewhere, and I think I was telling you this, James. Hey, look behind us, because they'll be up in the woods working, and you drive by and you think there's no beavers there, and they're already on the run because they hear the jet or whatever you're running or the surface drive, and they're actually hightailing it for water again, jumping off the banks. And I've seen it where I'm ripping in the boat and I'm like, man, there's no beavers. And I turn around, look behind me, and you can see them just jumping into the water off the banks where you just came from. They're deceiving. They're pretty elusive.
Yeah.
They can be elusive.
Well, and the thing I was surprised too is how much they're not like you gotta, just like anything else, but you got to get your beaver eyes on, like,
oh yeah,
because they'll be sitting there on the edge underneath like one of those mud lips or underneath some
like
brush,
a little washout or something,
and they're just staring at you like, what are you? Or or hoping you don't see them,
right?
Like hanging out underneath shaded overbrush.
They just look like a piece of like a sweeper hanging out or something.
There's a while there, every single little stump's like, is that a beaver? Is that a beaver? And you think you're crazy. Like, it's like when you're grouse hunting, right? And you're like, every little thing looks like a grouse. But then all of a sudden it actually is a beaver. And it really...
Well, and you can attribute a lot of that like overlooking to your success.
Right.
Yeah. It's like when you're looking at a hillside for bears and you see everything's a bear, but it's a bunch of root wads, right? Well, and then eventually one of these times there's a black bear in there.
Right. And how many of those root wads are black bears?
Well, sometimes there's a couple bears in those root
right,
wads.
Right. Yeah, I know. I know how many times where I've just been in an area. I know occasionally, this doesn't happen to me a lot, but occasionally I'll be glassing and I'll look at something and be 95% sure it's not an animal. Right? Like I've got good eyes. A lot of times when I'm sitting, and me and another guy are sitting in glassing, I'm usually the guy to spot stuff. Not because I'm better at it. I just have really good eyes. And so you add some glass to those and they get really good, right? Anyway, but like there's times like I'm 95, 99% sure that's not an animal. And then I go back to it and it's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I don't know.
We've done that. We did that with some wolves one winter.
Mm-hmm.
We thought they were like
you can usually tell.
We thought they were like timber.
Like your eyes learn to spot that difference between something that belongs and something that doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, and that happened with that bear I almost got on Sunday. I was so like, it's just another root ball. And then it turned and I'm like, oh, that is a bear.
That root wad's leaving.
Yeah. It's got a head. That's weird.
That root wad is digging in a root wad.
But no, honestly, being vigilant, that's cool. Like I would much rather look at 10 roots and then see it, or 10 stumps and then the 11th one actually be a beaver. And I thought all of them were beaver until I glassed them. Then be like, oh, that's just a stump. Oh, wait, no.
So you take your binos beaver hunting?
Yes. I have.
I don't, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
But I'm generally like operating the boat, or probably wouldn't be like, I don't think anyone would be very excited about me being on binos.
Okay, I'm just curious. Having not actually like gone gunning for beavers.
I would recommend it simply because the one time I didn't take my binos, I was just pointing my gun at every stump.
I think it's a great idea.
It sucked having to
Could have been somebody swimming with their head out of the water. James, come on.
I know. It's a bad practice. Don't do it.
If you're going with the current too, another good thing that you can do is if you can kind of predetermine that you're floating towards a beaver, is you can kick things down and get ready and do it stealthily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you know what I've been meaning to mention?
Mm-hmm.
Running that rifle cover.
Yeah.
That
for boats,
the like unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
That stealthy hunter rifle cover.
It's a good one,
dude. That thing is a game changer. And I've been watching all you guys with those things, and I'm like, that's cool, whatever. And I think it's a neat thing, dude. You need that when you're beaver hunting.
I was,
and it is, and I mean, boats are anybody that's spent any amount of time in a boat with a rifle. Boats will terrorize your rifles.
I was running. I know. I was watching, some Stealthy Hunter Gritty something. I was something with Ryan or Brian Lampers or Brian Call something, and I saw Ryan's rifle cover, and they had the little thing that popped up for it, and I remember it was like when he came out with it, and I thought, oh, that's cool. I guess I'll never use that. And I thought the same thing about his glassing pad. And then James and I a couple years ago went down southeast with Dalton, and Dalton had a rifle cover and a glassing pad. One of them that Ryan had given him, at least he gave him the rifle cover, I think. And said, here, try this out. And watching, and we were hunting out of a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And then watching like how, like, it's a, like, it's not like you're any less careful with your rifle, but you don't have to you don't have to be so careful with it anymore. You don't constantly have to be, so careful. It's in just the right spot where it's up,
Every bump in the boat is something to worry about. Yeah. Well, and the reason I like hearing you say that is because that's exactly how you were about it. You're like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. I mean,
well, and Carl's cool. Carl's not very, he's very hard to, he's pretty set in his ways, and it's something's really got to tickle his fancy. I was like, hey, Carl, check this out. And he's like, oh, that's cool. What's that? One of those covers? And I'm like, dude, look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you can get that rifle handy out of that thing quick.
Yeah.
And you tinker with it. And I would not have a rifle in that thing. So I have I have that rifle scabbard deal for the boat.
Yep.
I don't even think I'm going to put that in the boat anymore.
Really?
Because that Stealthy Hunter rifle cover works so well, and it's so fast.
Well, and it protects all the areas you need to be protected.
Right.
Your scope, your action, and your crown.
Well, and it's something else, that thing's very accommodating to a can. So I actually put that on a couple rifles with big can diameters because I wanted to play with it. I've been showing a lot of my buddies that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And that thing will go right over like large diameter cans, which is awesome because you don't want to ding a can up.
Right.
Yeah. And not if you don't have to, but yeah, for beaver hunting, that's a killer piece of equipment.
I I know because we talked about
Not
it.
to be a salesman, but I
Go for it. Sell them. Yeah.
I don't get very excited about stuff like that, and that
Mhm.
thing is on. I'm putting one on every.
Yeah. Well, and you pointed it out like right after I had my 22 out there, and you're like, "Why didn't you have that thing on there?" And I'm like, "It's a good point."
Well, your 22 is like it's beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
That
Yeah, I
thing's-
love that thing.
yeah.
That CZ. It's a
You cleaned
it's a
it up,
good
and I was
rifle.
like, "Dang,
I know.
that's too pretty to be in this boat."
Got it all old up and purdy.
You got to get the like
Well-
survival rifle. Like,
I want to put a
But-
can on that thing.
yes, you do.
Yeah, I think that thing would.
Is that thing threaded?
No, but I can get it threaded pretty easy. There's nothing on the end of the barrel that prevents it. So
22 mag suppresses beautifully too.
yeah,
It's very noticeable.
yeah. And I've got those new. I'm still shooting 30 grainers, but I've got those new TNT rounds for it. And I'm gonna see how those go. I was even toying around with the idea of going up like a 223 for a lot of my small games, like even beavers. But I really don't want to tear the hides up. Is the big deal. So I'm gonna see how these TNT bullets do, and then
We've been talking about going to the old AR.
yeah,
It's just so they're heavy.
you can build them light.
Yeah, but I
Um,
mean, so that's the thing. You build it, and you got money into it, right? And then
Oh,
you're
sure,
chucking
yeah.
it in a muddy
Right.
boat in a wet environment and getting blood.
Oh, like I don't
and-
do that with my Weatherby already.
Well,
Like-
Yeah, but your Weatherby's built for that.
Yeah,
build
you
an
can
AR
build
for that.
for it.
You can,
Yeah.
but like I say, you got so much money into it. You just like while it's designed to handle it, you don't.
I was gonna say my buddy had a 300 blackout back in the day, and he handed that thing to me. 4.5 pounds.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was insane. I mean, and don't get me wrong, it was like this guy had like 15 ARs. Like he was just a gun nut that just
Mhm.
loved building these things. It was his personal adult Legos, right? And like more power
Well,
to you. But like I just don't have that kind of money. But the fact is, you can like, and I was even thinking. So here was, I'll run this past you, and maybe it's not a good idea, but anyway, who cares? I was looking at going short barrel. So
Yeah.
even going with like having to get the tax stamp for SBR and all that, but like 10.5 inch,
Mm-hmm.
like
Oh man, pistol brace.
knock that that velocity down a little bit.
Well, before you got to this, so you kind of got me. We've been talking about going back to the 223 a lot,
Mhm.
even like a bolt action,
Yeah.
like a
Oh,
like a
dude.
Tika T3
I was gonna
light. I
say-
was looking right.
Ruger
And those
American,
things,
right?
those things are accurate as all get out.
We
dude.
up in their 1 in 8 twist
Mhm.
standard. So what I like is being able to run all that shelf. And I know we all get gun nerdy, some of us more than others, caliber nerdy. And I slip down that rabbit hole too every once in a while, but it's very hard to beat a 5.56
Mhm.
for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And we always want to find that perfect. And so sort of in reference into dropping that barrel length, you start losing that stabilization with some of that easier ammo to acquire.
Right,
That's a
yeah.
little more suitable for these applications, right?
Right,
And so
yeah.
you start getting into like 77 grainers and 75 grain,
Mhm.
right? And you
Mhm.
start losing that beauty.
Right.
That
Yeah.
versatility.
You're not able to stretch as far,
Yeah. And so,
which is true of any rifle of any caliber, really. I mean, when you get too short of a barrel
and I
for
mean,
what it's designed for, it's just you're going to lose that.
and I think a 16 inch barrel, like a semi lightweight rifle for like beaver hunting and
Mhm.
send it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you start getting short. I've considered that a lot.
Yeah.
And I have short barreled rifles.
Mm.
Well, I don't have short barrel rifles. I have pistols,
there you go.
legitimately. And they just, a lot of them don't stabilize that light stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Need a
And
super fast twist on it.
You
or something.
do need good groups.
Mhm.
You do.
Because you're
yeah.
shooting, you don't have these big windows.
Mhm.
You know, like
Yeah.
the old school, oh, if you can hit a pie plate, that's not how it
No.
works. I mean,
Especially when you're head
Right.
shooting beavers.
Well, if you could get that, what are you talking for short barrel, like 12 inch or something?
Yeah, 10.5, 12 inch.
10 and a
Yeah,
half,
something
12.
like
So
that.
I mean, so then you have a problem stabilizing that heavy stuff. Well, that's where you just go. If you can get that barrel then in a a 1 in 6 twist or something crazy, because like
Yeah.
if you look like 8.6 blackout, if you looked into like that, or even the 300 blackout, those usually have insane twists.
Mhm.
The 8.6 blackout is usually like in a 1 in 3.
Really?
Yeah, well, it's a 338
3?
going extremely slow, and so to stabilize those bullets,
Mm.
right? I mean, and it's insane the wound channels on those things. Now you're not going
Yeah.
to bear hunt with that thing, probably.
Probably not.
Oh,
I've never
yeah.
even looked into that one.
You
to be
could
honest
bear
with
bait
you,
with
but-
it, but Grand Thumb has some really cool testing videos they've done with it. That I was
What
watching,
caliber?
but 8.6 blackout.
you
It's
know
a
what
really cool cartridge.
I bear hunted with for a while that was really fun was a 50 Beowulf.
Yeah?
It was awesome.
I've looked into that. I've thought about that.
They thump.
Yeah, I've got a buddy that's using that right now.
I had it in a 10.5 inch barrel, and it hurt.
Did you ever chrono it?
No, but I mean, I dropped some bears with it, and it was immediate. It was devastating both ways.
Yeah. Well, you got to think that surface area, dude. I mean, it's 1/2 inch wide. I mean, that's like so.
Dude, I had some extreme penetrators in that, running that in that 10.5, and you know what? That's something I've always wanted to go back to when the bank account's looking sweet. Is I want to take that 10.5, do like a high end AR barrel 10.5 on that 50 bale, and put a can on it, and I think that would be the bait station gun.
That would be sick.
Like hearing safe, shoulder safe, and you got and it's semi-auto with a ton of power.
Yeah,
it's a lot of firepower on hand.
I think that 8.6 blackout bait wise would be great. I don't know if there's really any other hunting application it would be good in.
Yeah, I mean sub 30 yards all day long.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of velocities. I think it's mostly pretty much all subsonic. But
is it really? Yeah. Like I said, I've never really looked into it too much, but
the wound channel on it, because of the fast twist, really is what makes that wound channel so insane. But like they were shooting some barn stuff with it or something.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Well, and that's if I did that short barrel AR 223 for beavers and stuff like that. I would just dial it in with whatever hammers I could get, and figure out something there. Just do a custom load.
All you're doing is taking headshots.
Yeah, because then I don't have to worry about whether this box of ammo works for it or this box, and they don't have this at the store at this time. But
I'm sure this too, that you like reloading on something like that is really where it's at, because those things just turn into fire breathers, right?
Yeah,
like, pretty quick.
Yeah, so you can tune it to the right powder charge and everything.
And I think it'd be cool to get I have an 11.5 inch that I want to SBR. And I want to do. It'd be cool to like do some hand loads for that thing and use it as a predator gun. Like get some solids in that thing, like some heavy solids, and slow it way down.
Yep.
Like maybe like 2,200 feet per second, like a 22 mag, but like with a 70 grain bullet or an 80 grain bullet.
Exactly.
Right? Like that.
Well, and that's where my mind's going with it. Is it's like you just have a little bit more mass. It's like it's
well, and what you're losing in speed, you're making up for in energy.
Yeah.
Right. I mean.
I don't know. That idea is like 2 weeks old. We'll see how it comes to fruition.
I want to come.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just thinking. I got a 6mm arc that I built. Haven't killed anything with it yet. I've got those bullets that have no hollow point in them, and it's already shooting pretty slow. Not.
What are you doing? Like 2,400?
I'm as slow as I could get, and still cycle without having to adjust my buffer or any of that. I think it was like 25, 26.
I'm getting like 25-10 with like factory.
Yeah, that was in
of my
winter
6
too.
or
I don't
18
remember.
inch.
Yeah,
which I think that's pretty slick. They suppress well too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a threaded barrel on that thing.
And
I've thought about getting a suppressor for it.
And that was the backup idea to the idea of the short barrel, was then you throw a can on that, and then you've just got a regular sized.
My 6 arc is not light
gun, so
I didn't build it to be light. I don't know what it weighs, but it's probably 20 pounds.
What?
I mean, maybe not that much, but it ain't light.
Way.
Dude,
I think mine's like
light.
I think
No
mine's
way,
like 10 pounds.
Mine's easy. Oh, well over 10. Well over 10.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I didn't build an AR platform.
Yeah.
I didn't build a light, dude. I just.
Well, yeah, but even not
you got to
think
like
I mean,
that materials. They're pretty.
I know. I haven't picked it up in a while. I just remember every time I pick it up, I go, oh.
I was like, 20 pounds is heavy.
It
dude.
is. It is. I mean, my 4570's got some weight to it.
Your 4570 is probably like 9 pounds, 8 pounds, Matt.
My 4570 is lighter than my 6R.
Yeah, is it really?
They're not actually like, yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, they're like, I think my Henry's like 8.2 pounds or something like that. It's yeah.
Dude, that 204, that Savage that I had our buddy do the work on, and I Cerakoted it and I did all that jazz. That thing's got like a 26-inch barrel on it. And I think with a can, it's like
my
31 inches or something.
Man.
Like, so the whole gun's like over 48 inches, but it's on a bipod all winter.
Yeah.
Whatever.
What barrel did you put on your 6 arc?
I did the 18-inch proof stainless.
Okay. I got an 18-inch Grendel Hunter. Well, no, it's made by Liberty barrels. Or it's a Liberty barrel by Saturn. Maybe that's what it is. I think that's what it is.
Those proofs are sweet.
Yeah, I like proofs.
And those guys,
they've got a good reputation.
I just bought a completed upper. It was, and I mean, I didn't buy a cheap one. I built mine and it's just sat. Right. I mean, I
got
built
a
mine and it's
Leopold.
just that too. So.
I got a Leopold 3-18 by 44 VX6 fire dot. And I mean,
Nice.
it's so decked out and it's just sits.
I've got a Vortex. Oh, what is that?
I'm
It's
like,
the
I'll kill a
Strike
wolf
Eagle,
with it.
Oh yeah.
3 to 15 by 44 or 3 to 18 by 44.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the whole Christmas tree in there,
Dude,
lit reticle, everything.
The
like,
3 to 18 is where it's at.
I think it's either 15 or 18 that's on that thing.
You got to start 3 is the max with predator hunting. Anything like 4 is too much. 4.5, all you're just looking at hair.
Right.
That's all you're doing.
Well, I used to take a 4-power into the bear bait too, and it's just way too much.
Yeah, my bear rifle's a 1.5 to 5.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a 1-power now, like a 1 to 6 or a 1 to 4.5, something like that. I think that'd be perfect.
Those Leopolds that Dalton and I got, the Mark IV.
Oh, that's a sweet gun,
dude. And
scope,
those
I've looked at
those crosshairs are super like fine and
so crisp.
What I'm really amazed with is your field of view in that thing. Like for a 24 mil, it's
like iron sights.
Good. Like it's really good.
And you know what?
Like, you can see the barrel of your rifle.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy is the light gathering on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you know what I want to do, because I want to start filming stuff with like a trigger cam.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that on a predator hunting and filming it, with a scope cam on a 3-power.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of magnification. And then you're already losing a lot of field of view with that camera because they haven't really figured that technology out yet. It's pretty new still. But that I want to run that 1-power on there.
Mm-hmm.
And
does
then
scope
just
cam mess up you at all? Does it reduce your quality?
Not at all. No, the trigger cam's where it's at.
I have to look into that.
You're just looking right through it, basically.
Okay, which
like
one run? I mean, but it doesn't mess with like quality or glass clarity. I mean,
not at all. Nope.
Yeah.
Your assembly is like your setup, so you just make sure everything's really clean.
If you put it on a big rifle, you'll want to move your scope forward because it does add like probably 3 inches to the back of your diopter. So
the trigger cam doesn't add that much.
It's at least that much.
I think when I looked it up, it was like 1 3/4 inches.
Oh, it's way more than that. It's got to be.
No, like if you measure that
Anyhow,
sleeve.
Chris, you have one. Tell me about it. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm sorry, James. I just he's trying to tell me about it, and you're over here 1 3/4, 3 inches.
Because I've never played with one.
It slips over the objective like pretty well.
Okay,
but it will change. Like James saying, if you have something that's got a lot of like recoil, it's something to consider. Yeah, some cam eye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll definitely hammer you.
Gotcha. I'd be interested in that. It would be cool, especially for a bear bait or something. But
yeah, but you got to have that low power, because it. And James is a lot more knowledgeable on this, but it kind of narrows that field of view.
Does it?
Yeah, I mean,
so it does.
I would say it cuts your field of view a little bit, but not like with that Leopold. It did okay. Like it wasn't like you had all kinds of dark rings around the outside or anything like that. But it's just, you're just farther away from it, you know. Like so, how your eye perceives going through those lenses is just going to be different. I don't know. I guess with the part of it going over the actual bell or the rear bell, it maybe
there's a lot of
there's
definitely a lot of material there, but it's deceiving. It you can kind of adjust it. Another thing too is like your throw levers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how you have that set up, you can sleeve it on there further. But like on that Leopold, it's got that throw lever, so that kind of stops it from going further onto it.
But I will say the trigger cam is a lot better than the Tacticam as far as that goes.
Because there's not even any comparison.
That Tacticam, it's a housing you put on the back of your scope, and then you have like this whole camera. I mean, I say a whole camera. It's a cylinder camera. It goes along the side of your scope. I mean, you can really put it anywhere. Most people put it along the side, and like it's
in the way.
Those Tacticam or those trigger cams are so less in the way than one of those is.
They're a lot heavier,
so
but they're just so much better quality.
Trigger cam?
Yeah, they're a lot heavier.
If I pull that trigger cam out of my backpack and can I just throw that on the scope if I decide I want to do that?
Yeah, you can.
I say I'm running a wheeler. I run up. I'm glassing.
You can, if you can get pretty proficient with like slipping it on and off in a hurry. And I will say too, like, so if your parallax adjustment is on your left, like it's a knob adjustment, that's a lot better than if you have it, then it's on your.
Well, what the problem you have, so he has the whole rear of his scope twists.
Right.
You know how normally it's just your little diopter
I
at
mean,
the
yeah,
end?
I've seen both, but yeah.
Yeah. So in that instance, that's what you're dealing with is it gets off level because that's the part of the scope that it attaches
Is that
to.
the Mark IV that does that?
No. This
No.
is a different,
Oh, okay.
a different
Yeah,
Leopold
different
that I
scope.
have on it's on a Predator rifle. And James and I were tinkering with it. And the one good thing is once you cinch it down, you can turn it back level and it goes back to like, it goes back level, but it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And it's only gonna spin so far before it runs into your action. It's definitely an appendage, if you will.
One question have you tried putting that rifle cover over with the cam on?
It works perfect.
Does
Does
it?
it?
Yeah, good. I was curious about that.
It helped kind of keep everything with that rifle because I went home right away and like I was ready for this question. No, it works really good. It accommodates all that really well.
Yeah.
I was very impressed.
Good.
Cool.
Good.
Well,
That's
I'll
good to
have
hear.
look. It's cool. I've been wanting to film stuff too, and I've got a GoPro that I've done some filming with and stuff, and haven't really done anything with any of it yet. But I've got the footage, right?
So Tacticam's out of South Africa, and so like their customer service can be kind of. It's not that it's bad, but it could be very hard to get.
Well, they're
linked
11
up.
hours ahead of us.
Yes.
Trigger
Yeah.
cam or Tacticam?
Trigger cam.
I don't know.
And the Tacticam, like I mean, you can look at comparison videos. There's no comparison quality
As far as quality goes.
No, the only thing I will say is the Tacticam is way lighter because I think that trigger cam is like a pound plus.
Wow.
I mean, it's very noticeable.
It was hefty. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a light thing, but
it's
yeah. I'll ask this as far as function goes because I haven't played with the function on either one. So I think the trigger cams are the ones that do like the loop video. So it does like a 30-second loop or something like that over and over again. Your trigger cam, does it just, you hit record and it just records continuous?
Yeah, you could just sit and record with it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because that's what I like. I think that's
There's a
best way to
couple
go.
that uses them too. They're pretty big name
Yeah.
that you're familiar with. That
Yep.
we've talked about it. And they got some really cool, like,
Mm-hmm.
some pretty long footage with just that trigger cam.
Yeah. No, it's a phenomenal piece, honestly.
What's fun to do with it too, and I mean it's nerdy, but it's useful, is like I'm not a great shot. I've definitely improved. I've become a lot better shot over time. But it helps you take like corrective measures too.
Oh, yeah.
You can actually like run that thing at the range and go home and watch what you were doing.
Yeah.
You can see where you pulled. It can be pretty useful in that regard.
Yeah. I was actually thinking, as soon as we were playing with it at your house, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, that's the perfect way you can go back and look and see, like, okay, did it move right before I pulled the trigger?
Mm-hmm.
Did I pull that shot? Because, can I see the impact on this footage? And just, it gives you a lot more information. It sounds pretty cool.
Well, and I mean, if it's like the most handy thing you have too. You can actually like run footage with that if you need to, if you don't have time to get other things rolling.
Oh yeah. No,
cool.
and the videos I've seen with those things, like when they tag those inside like full YouTube videos, it's awesome to have that as
I have
as
a
an
couple.
add-on.
I have a couple like, but yeah, it's fun. It's fun. You can get wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
But it's funny too. I kind of forgot that I had it. I need to start running it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Every time we've gone out, you're like, I forgot the camera gear.
I mean, well, hunting's hard enough, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's like and then I started carrying the GoPro recently, and it's like, dude, I'm just hauling all this, man.
Yep.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like I got dog food in the
Well, and then
rack
it's
pack, and the GoPro's hooked to the top of the rack pack frame, and I'm bending down because my wife's shorter than me, and she's like adjusting it. I'm like, okay, hurry up, because I'm like,
Right.
I can't hold this weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. The GoPro, just like getting it out and recording stuff and consistently and remembering to get it out.
It's so cool though.
It is. I agree.
Mhm.
It is. It's just like remembering to do it is the
Yeah.
biggest thing for me. And then, like, oh yeah, let me grab the GoPro. Oh, wait, it's been sitting there for 3 months. All the batteries are dead.
Dude, I wish I would have had like all this stuff when I went to Kodiak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So bad. And like long ago, I wish I would have like, it's like the InReach, everything, buy the stuff that's important.
Mhm.
Yep.
I mean, I wish I would have bought filming equipment a long time ago just to And there's nothing better than, I mean, think about like a rough January day, right? You just whip some bear baiting footage out, run it on the flat screen.
Yeah. That's
Looks
true.
like they have another. I'm on their website right now. You know, because we talk about gear, I want to look it up, right?
They're about $700, right?
It says $565.
And then you got shipping
Just
on that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Then they have a like a underbarrel mount one that mounts to a Picatinny.
Yeah.
So you for like anything close range, bow,
Shotgun.
shotgun, pistol,
Yeah.
AR probably too, whatever, you know. But and they've got like a barrel mount so you can pop it on the shotgun too.
Let me see.
They've got it where it either goes to pick or barrel mount. Yeah, and it's only like $200.
That's pretty slick.
Cool. I didn't even know that was an option.
There's all kinds of things with
I mean,
technology
you can do that
these
with
days.
now, you can do that with your GoPro, right? It's real easy to mount your GoPro to a weapon. But
Is it?
I mean, you can get the adapters and whatnot.
They have a
to do
lot
it.
of different mounting
Yeah.
systems. Yeah.
Well, and everybody makes one. Like if you can get an M-Lock GoPro mount.
Dude, it's so funny. So the
Right.
other day I took my 17 WSM
Mm-hmm.
and I just wanted to see, right? Just nerding out. So I put the trigger cam on. Put my Predator light on. Put my can on. Put my bipod on. I'm like, next thing I need is like a white Toyota Tacoma,
right?
like with a turret in the back. Like, I'm like, this is so ridiculous.
Well, it's
Yeah,
like-
I mean, my wife walked by and like did the pause. She like looked.
you're like just
like,
have fun.
She's
Just having
like,
fun.
what the heck? Like,
Mhm.
but I mean,
Well, look at this.
you're
thing
just
right
like,
here.
what? If,
Well,
what an assembly to lob a
Well,
20 grain bullet, right?
And you also got to know like what you're getting into as far as hauling that thing around in deep snow and stuff. So.
You know, I feel the same way with this, right? Like it's not even. I've got my daily carry has a light and a red dot,
Mhm.
but that light and red dot dress it up so much.
Mhm.
Well, and you and I, we were talking about doing some stuff, and like, what's kind of neat is you got that green light.
Yeah. I love that thing, dude. That thing was phenomenal.
Yeah, we got to play with that a bunch. That was cool.
Yeah. Make sure, for anybody listening, make sure you take that off your rifle, but if you're going to use the same rifle to go after beavers too. Highly illegal to have that on there when you go after beavers.
That's a great point.
Yeah, so I had a light on my 22 mag, and that's what I was, planning to take out for a lot more predator hunting than I ended up being able to do. But it came beaver season, and we're like, oh, let's go, and I'm grabbing it, and I'm, luckily mine comes off really quick. It's just a little novice
So you
assembly,
can't-
but
So beavers aren't. You're
Nope.
not allowed to use artificial light for beavers.
no spotlighting. No,
You're
so,
out of that window.
yeah.
You're out of that out of that period.
So
Okay.
if you look at the reg where it says you're allowed to use artificial light, it's in certain units, and then I think it ends March 31st. I want to say.
Okay.
And so by the time you're out there on the water,
Gotcha.
it's after that time period. So, big no. But just make sure you don't forget about it, and just take your predator gun out, trying to get a beaver, and leave that spotlight on there.
I
and
was
get
like,
hemmed
hey,
up.
James.
Yeah, he's like, you plan on taking that light off? I'm like, yes, I'm planning on taking the light off.
I'm like, you're not putting that in a boat like that, are you?
No,
We're the only
but-
ones dumb enough to be out there. They're going to be looking at us. They're going to be going through this with a fine tooth comb.
Right.
Nobody's willing to go sit out there and freeze for this.
I really want to hunt.
That's like when I
beavers.
went. What?
I really want to hunt beavers with my my 22,
I think it would work
my
great.
1022.
I think it would
because
work great.
I put it in that stock. It's like a bullpup now, and so it's
Mhm.
just a little bit longer than like if you take the stock off and just have the action barrel sitting there. It's just a little longer than that right now.
Mhm.
I want to hunt beavers with that. It's so bad, just because it's so small and light.
Just gotta take,
Right.
if you can shoot it accurately, if you can get
Mhm.
tiny little groups,
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's all you need.
that's
Oh, yeah.
You don't
so
need a
easy to
lot
shoot
of
nice.
humps. You just need those headshots. That's where it's
I
at.
took it out there.
Yeah.
I had my red dot mounted on it. I took it out the other day with a piece of paper. Dialed it right in.
if anything, honestly, using a 22 LR like that, I mean, you might be able to actually salvage a skull after a headshot.
Yeah,
Depending on
maybe.
what
It
ammo
might
you're
look cool
using.
too.
I was like, is the 22 mag? Not so much.
A lot faster, right?
There was nothing left of that skull.
You know what though? Your shot was like super clean.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
was,
that you couldn't even, because you got to think when you flesh them out,
mhm.
you've got the 2 ear holes, you've
Yeah.
got the eye holes, and then you have all that like trim stuff around the edges.
Mhm.
But you couldn't even really see that bullet hole on yours.
Yeah.
That hide is, dude. I can't wait to see that.
Oh,
thing.
dude, I'm so excited to get it back.
I'm excited
But-
for you to get it back.
Well, let's see. What time is it? Oh, let's take a break.
All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. Stealthy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to stealthyhunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.
So, speaking of big old rats that don't want to die, that might not be the most tactful way to put it, but
I mean, you know.
So, you've talked about how beavers they have a will to live like crazy. Their land baron counterpart is the porcupine. So I hunt porcupine like by opportunity. I mean, there's been times I go out specifically looking for them, but a lot of times, especially during bear baiting season, that's when they're running around. They're out like crazy. Yeah. You're running around, they're running around, paths collide, good things happen. But depending on which end of the rifle you're on, I guess. But and I hunt them because porcupine, believe it or not, is delicious.
You told me this.
Yeah, it is like one of the best tasting, I would say, small game I've ever had. Like it's amazing. We like to do like pulled porcupine sandwiches. That's a really good way to do it. You get them and you break them down, throw them in the slow cooker, and just slather them up in barbecue sauce. And dude, it's so tender.
What about doing that like with a dry? Would that be good?
I think it would. Yeah, because roasting it's pretty good too.
Right.
So I figure if it can be roasted, it could be
Whenever I think of
dried
sandwiches,
or something
I think
like
of my lunch.
Oh, right.
Like constantly evolving my sandwich for lunch because
talking like Texas style pulled porcupine.
Sure. I mean, I eat complicated sandwiches because, well, after a while, the old meat and cheese gets kind of stale.
Right.
So yeah, I'd start adding some pickles and whatever.
Yep.
But if we could do, I can pull out my sandwich at work instead of bragging about the bacon, I can brag about the porcupine.
Oh, absolutely. And the funniest thing is people look at you like you're crazy too.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's what it would be exactly.
It's so underrated.
Yeah, I talk about this all the time with people, and everybody looks at me like, "Really? You eat porcupine?"
It's so good.
And I get it because they're ugly and they're slow and they're arguably pretty smelly. When you first kill them, like they don't smell good. But my goodness, so I started like actually hunting porcupine. I don't know, like 4 years ago or something like that, because somebody that I know kept telling me, they're like, "Dude, it's amazing. It tastes so good. Like you've got to try it." And I was that dude. I was like, "Really? No, dude. No, there's no way that tastes good." And then so one bear baiting season, I was just like, you know what? I see these all the time on the trail, whether I'm on the wheeler or on the road, like they're always out, in the later hours. And I was like, you know what? I'll bring my 22. We'll figure this out. And so bagged one, brought it home, processed it out. A lot of learning experience in that mixed in with that. And it is like, I will shoot every porcupine I have the ability to right now. Like, and the cool thing is, in the state of Alaska, at least in our area, I want to say it's statewide, but obviously check your regs.
I'll look it up right now.
There's no close season and no bag limit on porcupine. And I think a lot of that has to do with lack of pressure. They're not being hunted like crazy. They're not they're not something that you would be going after like crazy. And just not a lot of people hunt them. So the guys like me, I might, kill a couple every weekend or something like that.
More probably nuisance shot than shot for food.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of people out in like remote areas that just don't like them because they get into stuff.
All right. They
hurt dogs and they
chew
up
stuff wood
up.
And
yeah. But like, I mean, once you've tasted porcupine, like I guarantee you'll shoot the next one if you take care of it right and if you kill it right. those are two big considerations to make when you're doing porcupine hunting. And you said you've never eaten it, Mo, right?
Never eaten it.
But you said you have, Chris, right?
Yeah, I've had it a few times.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's way better than beaver meat.
Yeah, and that's the one I haven't tried yet. And my wife has a bunch of recipes for beaver meat that
Speaking of
she
eating,
got from a friend that has like a homesteading cookbook kind of thing,
Gotcha.
like that she wrote.
Oh,
And
wow.
but we just haven't been able to eat that yet because I always put them at the bear baits or the one we got. So
I can't do it anymore.
oh yeah, after smelling them rancid.
No,
Yeah.
I've eaten like quite a bit in the past, but
Yeah.
yeah, like no. Porcupine is definitely, it's so underrated.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I wanted to ask you. You made that post the other day where you had like some rub on there.
Mm-hmm.
What were you up to there? What was the
That was my wife.
what'd she do there? That looks so
so
good.
I think she did like a combo of like steak seasoning, and I forget what she doesn't tell me what all she puts in there because she knows I'm on a podcast and I don't think she wants me telling the world, but
okay.
she does. She's the old timey. This is my recipe. Got to pay me for it. But no, it's whatever she does to it. It's super good.
It looks so good.
And honestly, I'll even put it this way: the reason I can't tell you exactly what it was is because it changes every time.
Right.
So this is one thing I love about my wife's cooking is it's never the same. Like she might make the same meal 10 times in a row, and it'll be different every time, but good every time.
Mhm.
She's grew up, around people that didn't measure anything. They're like, oh, yep, that looks right.
That's
Or,
the best.
Oh, yep, that looks right. And so it's always a little bit different, but it's always super good. Whatever, like, I can't do that. I'm not even going to lie to you. I can't mix seasonings and be like, well, this would go good with this and this, oh, yeah, actually, that sounds really good too. She's got it down to a science. Shout out to my wife on that one. Really good job. But she does all the porcupine cooking. And she does quite a bit of porcupine killing herself too. But,
no kidding.
oh yeah, dude,
That's
she's
cool.
made some wild shots on porcupine.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. No, she usually if I'm in the woods, she's with me if she's free. It's a cool gig. But that's kind of the cool thing with porcupine is it's just like you can just it's a thing of opportunity, right? Now I've gone out and specifically targeted them before, during prime time and during if you know where they're going to hang out and stuff like that. But a lot of it's just rolling down the road or rolling into the bait. Like you'll find them walking in, wheelering in, anywhere like that. I mean, they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They're out when bears are out.
Yeah, yeah. And the funny thing, so they're really common in like, I mean, this is kind of like most animals, but like heavily wooded areas, because they eat
Mm-hmm.
like bark, or like the inner linings of the bark and stuff like that, and they'll eat softer vegetation too. But they really like those areas with like the good like birch trees and spruce trees, like where they're actually like good trees.
You see them in
like,
that open stuff.
Yeah, and so they're pretty easy to spot.
Mhm.
And for some reason they're always on the trails or on the side of the road and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun to just spot them because all of a sudden you're just cruising, just rolling along, and then you're like, oh, there's one. But one thing to keep in mind with that is they climb trees.
Yeah.
So porcupines are active year round. You just see them more in the spring and the summer and the fall. But they will climb trees all the way to the very tippy top.
Mm-hmm.
We have spotted them like 60 feet in the air at the top of like this birch or this spruce tree. And I mean, to the point where you don't even know what it's hanging on to because it's so thin up there.
There's nothing up
I've got
there.
a picture I could show you, dude.
I want to see
and
it.
it's just waving in the wind, like hanging onto this tree for dear life. And it, I don't think it was up there because of us. I think it was just up there.
Do they get tangled if you shoot them? Can they?
They can. I mean,
like black bears.
They're very round. So kind of like beavers, they've got little legs, and they're very plump and very, just like they're not like lanky critters. We'll put it that way. Until you skin them out. They're the opposite of a beaver. So you skin them out, all that plumpness goes away, and they just look like a big squirrel. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. If Instagram will let me, I might even post a picture of that too. That whole process, or maybe, I don't know, we'll do a video or something. I don't know. But yeah, they're very round. So they don't get hung up often, but they can for sure. Like, especially in those thicker trees with a lot of brush on them. But they're just a blast, man. I mean, you never know where they're going to show up. I had a friend that almost blasted one at like 10 feet because he was walking into his bait and it ran up a tree like right in front of him. And he, I mean, you're on high alert walking in there. And he said it scared the living daylights out of him.
Oh, I bet. That'll get the blood going.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen porcupine. If you're just running around in the woods, anywhere you go, you're going to see porcupine. But they really like those areas with good trees. So if you got nice big trees, you're not really going to see them on the tundra. You're not really going to see them, too much. You might. I've never seen them in like the real small black spruce stuff. But anywhere you've got like decent trees, like halfway decent trees for the interior, there's more than likely going to be porcupine in there. And if you just spend some time running around in there, they're pretty nocturnal. They like to be around in the late times. I've seen them midday, but usually only when they're coming out of their den real quick. Because they'll den up in like the cut in sides of trails or in hillsides and stuff like that, underneath trees.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll den up there too. And you can kind of like midday catch them coming and going a little bit, but for the most part, they're like walking around, like looking for food and stuff, like later in like the waning light, or even early morning. I mean, I've shot them at 3 a.m. before.
I always see them like coming home from the baits and stuff.
Yeah,
that's what I always. So I got a question: do they keep well? Like, could you stockpile them for like? Could you like
No.
you could other stuff?
No. So the hard part with them, and really, I mean, any small game, birds is one thing. Like you go shoot a slew of birds, you can throw them in the freezer hole,
Right.
and they'll keep really well.
Guts and everything.
Guts and
They won't
everything.
freezer burn.
What I have found with porcupines specifically, just because I haven't tried preserving a beaver for food yet, is you got to do them fresh. You got to, when you're going to shoot one, plan on going home and skinning it out and getting it in quarters and at least getting it in, a gallon Ziploc and in the fridge that night, because I have, shot them at 3 a.m. on the way home from the bait. You'll see them crossing the road or crossing the trail, and you just, step off over the guardrail and there they are in the ditch, and boom, throw them in the back of the truck. It might be a cool night, but if you just set them out and expect to deal with it in a few hours when you wake up, you're just going to go home and take a cat nap. I think I let mine sit from about 3. I want to say I got to it around 9 the next morning, and it was already too far gone. And the weird thing is, it wasn't so far gone that it was noticeable. So, because the thing that was distinct about it is there was no rigor mortis yet. Like it wasn't all locked up and everything. I mean, the joints were a little bit stiff, but nothing crazy, right? The meat was still soft. Everything smelled fine. It looked fine. It wasn't until we cooked it that it kind of brought that flavor out, and it was like, it just wasn't good. So, but that was the only bad porcupine I've ever had. And I've eaten a lot of porcupine at this point. And that's the only thing that was different about it.
Could you like vac seal it though?
Oh, sure.
Like that's
Once it's processed, you can keep it as long as you want. I would say it's just like any other meat. Really.
Okay.
But it's you don't want to put off the processing time, which is the hard part about porcupine hunting, because like I said, I have found them in the daytime, but I have found way more in the nighttime. Like 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. is like, you're gonna see porcupine during that hour.
Right.
Whether you're on a highway out of town or you're on a wheeler trail, they're gonna be out walking around. And if you're not ready to stay up late and deal with it, and get the skin off and get the guts out, honestly, we'll talk about this in a sec, but I don't even gut them. But you get, them torn down and ready to eat. Then if you want to eat it fresh, fresh, never frozen, then you throw it in a gallon Ziploc, throw it in the fridge, put it takes not a brine, but what's the word I'm thinking of?
Soak?
Marinade.
Marinade. There you
Marinade really well. It soaks up any kind of marinade really well. But once you get it to that point, it's fine. And you can, I've vac sealed them and saved them and eaten them months later, and it perfectly fine. Didn't taste weird at all. But trying to put off that processing time until like the next morning when you can get to it, not a good idea. They sour so quick. It's ridiculous how fast they sour. So that therein is the hardest part of porcupine hunting, because I like to say I shoot every one I get an opportunity at, but by opportunity I mean, do I have the time
Right.
to dedicate to the, like, I'm driving home from the bait. I've been sitting for 9 hours. It's 3 a.m. and, or 4 a.m. And I'm like, do I really want to skin a porcupine when I get home? And if the answer is no, I don't shoot it. Because at that point it's just going to go to waste. It's going to get chucked into a bush, or it's going to end up at the dump or something like that, because it's going to spoil. It's going to get stiff, and I'm not going to be able to eat it.
Yeah, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to, I don't know what the process would look like to mount one. I've never mounted one, but if I ever shot like a massive one, I might want to. I don't know. They can get big too. I mean, they're not cool. They're not quite as big as beavers, I would say, but they're hefty. I mean, they have some weight to them. They're, over 20 pounds, some of them that I've shot. So, but there's, I don't know. That's for me. That's what I preach to anybody who's looking to porcupine hunt, is just don't delay. Don't wait. Because I know it's late, but if you can just stay up for that extra 10 minutes to process this thing, it doesn't take very long if you do it right. It'll make all the difference in the world, and you'll actually enjoy eating it.
It's kind of good to be that way with everything, in my opinion. And I'm that way from like not coming from a hunting background.
Mm-hmm.
And being in that panic is just getting right at anything I ever shoot. Like,
Yeah.
I think kind of out of worry, but then it's just become like a
Right.
continuous habit of mine.
Right.
And you do kind of notice the difference in quality, I feel like, too.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it was kind of funny because in Africa, when I was down there, I was worried more than the PHs, and they kind of like thought I was weird for worrying. But we'd go out in the morning time, and you'd shoot a warthog, and oh, cool, let's keep hunting. I'm like, man, it's 8 a.m. and it's already 80 degrees outside, and they're like, oh yeah, and we'd go shoot. Oh man, two more impala, boom, boom, yeah, throw them in the back. All right, let's keep hunting. And then we'd head home around lunch, and then they'd hang it up and skin it, and and everything. But
it was fine.
It was fine. Yeah.
Different practices, different places.
And it blew my mind with how hot it was, because everything I've ever learned as a hunter here is like, gut it out as soon as you can, haul it out, get it in game bags, get it cooling off, like, and even like my uncle that hunts deer in Ohio, he doesn't necessarily quarter them out immediately if they're hot and heavy,
Right.
midday, but he'll drag them back to the house, gut them out, throw some ice bags in the chest cavity and everything, get them cooling at least, and then later that evening when he has time, he'll go in and
That's
skin them
interesting.
properly.
Have you heard of Vancouver bulls?
Vancouver bulls?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
They're in the Hawaiian Islands, and they were released there as supposed to be used like cattle, but
Oh yeah.
they run wild for the most part down there, and they're actually pests.
Oh okay. Yeah.
But
What are they?
The Vancouver bulls. It's a big,
Like a cow or what?
yeah, basically,
Well,
but big.
Hawaii's riddled
heavy
with
duty.
wild livestock,
Right.
like goats, like
They-
domestic
they're
goats,
big,
chickens.
They're
like,
dangerous.
yeah.
Right? If there's the amount of effort you got to put into it, a sheep style hunt in Hawaii, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to a lot of times multi-day hike into the jungle
Yeah.
to get your bull. Like not necessarily multi-day to get in there, but multi-day hunts of hiking into the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and like guys will try to bow hunt them, which apparently is almost impossible.
That's really Hawaii's
But
fault.
what they say about it
It's
is,
about all you can do.
well, you can rifle hunt those, I think, pretty well because of where they're at.
It's more just the state in general is just kind of a lot more prone to bow hunting. I'll say
Well,
that.
yeah, well, I just know a lot of guys don't get them with bow. They're hard to bow hunt because of
I'm sure.
what they are. But they what I was reading about them a while back, and like you get in there, you get your bull, and you can shoot them like how pretty much. There's different ways of hunting them. Like you can go pest hunt them on somebody's farm or something too.
Mm-hmm.
But like hiking into the jungle and doing it that way, the meat you carry out on your back is the meat you get off of it.
Oh yeah, because you're so deep in there, and it's
So
just
you're
gonna
so deep in
spoil.
there, and you're just not going to get back in time because of the heat in the jungle.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and I'm curious if the humidity maybe has something to do with
It
that because
might.
Africa was super dry.
That may have a lot to
So,
do with it.
Yeah,
I wonder if those animals are like just sort of by nature, like
used to
God
it.
set them up to where they don't spoil as bad.
Right. Well, because
You
you
know?
got to think. I mean, before refrigeration and all that over there. I mean, what do they have? Like a hole in the ground, like a
I mean, I just
a
wonder
root
if
cellar?
like the bacterias and stuff are just different where they just don't.
There's so many animals. They
succumb
just
to-
shot animals when they were hungry.
Well, and that's cool. I mean, side tangent, but I did watch a pretty long documentary on some of the tribes over there in South Africa or Africa in general. But like a lot of them over there never preserved food because they didn't have to, because it's warm
So
and
abundant.
there's
Right.
fruit growing and there's
Right.
always animals to harvest and stuff.
Imagine
And they would go out and get what they need
Mhm.
for the day for the tribe, and then they would eat, and then they would go out the next day and get what they need for the tribe and bring back. I'm like, man, that's gotta be a nice way to live. I mean, they were wearing cloths for clothes and no running water or anything like that. So depends on your idea of nice to live, I guess. But
Right.
if you can harvest animals every
If I
day,
could
that's
afford
pretty
that,
nice.
I'd go that route.
right. Right. From our perspective, that's a pretty nice way to live. But no, porcupine, and honestly, I would say any kind of small game here in Alaska, just don't wait on it. Like you said, just get anything you shoot,
Mhm.
just get after it. Immediately.
Have either of you eaten muskrat?
No,
No.
I've heard it's really good though.
I've heard it's good. I've never eaten it myself. I want to try it.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, it's pretty popular to eat in the South.
That would make sense. I wonder if they're
In-
bigger down there.
No, I know maybe not the South, but like Midwest.
Oh, okay, yeah, south
South
of
to
here.
us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But have you seen? I don't know if you've seen that YouTube channel or YouTube show that Meat Eater did. The Pardon My Plate,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
where
Oh,
they
yeah.
eat weird stuff.
Yeah.
like that people like they eat coyote and they eat carp and like all this weird stuff that nobody wants to eat. In one of the episodes, they did muskrat,
Mhm.
and everybody said it was really good.
Yeah. I've heard from people here that it's really good.
Like if you do it right.
Yeah.
Like,
So.
and they always in that show they always would cook it in a super like the most basic way to cook it.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is how you'd probably cook this. The most basic way to do it, salt and pepper, is about how they would do it, right?
Yeah. Well, you get the real taste of the meat
Right,
at that
exactly.
point too. I mean, and that's kind of with porcupine. Like I like slathering it in barbecue sauce, but
Mhm.
that's not the only way to eat it. It's good even without the barbecue sauce.
That
right?
was
You
my
know?
question with that. You're like, okay, well, it's good in barbecue sauce. Could I do some kind of quick salt
Mhm.
and pepper on a sandwich? Is that going to be good?
Yeah.
Or am I going to bite into that and go, oh, I need barbecue sauce?
It's nice
So-
when you can eat something with minimal prep.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And really enjoy it.
I know roasting it works really good. It roasts really good.
Sure.
If you were to do like some kind of like a dry barbecue, like I'm not sure, I would like to try smoking it or
good,
something
yeah.
like that. Actually, that
That's
might
what I was
be
going to
pretty
ask
good.
you next. Is if you thought it was like a
Yeah,
good smoky meat.
I would think it would be. I haven't tried that, but I would absolutely try that.
You know what I'm going to do this year? My neighbor, he does brisket,
Mhm.
and he is phenomenal, dude. He makes some awesome brisket. I want to give him a couple bare hindquarters,
Yeah.
and he'll get up at like
Mm.
he'll get up at like
Yeah.
6 in the morning and start slugging cold ones, and like he just tends to those things
Like a true
all
barbecue
day.
man.
Oh yeah, and it is so good,
Dude,
Oh,
and
my
then what's
gosh.
crazy, like I don't know if I have the patience for that.
I don't.
But like those guys, they eat it up. Dude.
well, and I
It's
don't
like- it's like
drink
with the-
anymore, so that
Right,
kind of
yeah,
that kind of takes away some of the
Yeah,
allure of sitting there. all day.
Exactly. But like I got a buddy, the one that did the barbecue at the bear event,
Oh,
and dude, he's that way.
Dude.
He'll like wake up at 3 a.m. to go like take the foil off and like change some stuff and slather it down with apple
Mhm.
cider and stuff like that, and like
Dude, he's-
whatever his magical process is, right? But it's like he'll literally get up at midnight to 3 to go work on this
Dude,
thing
he's
that he's
so
smoking, and
talented.
I'm like, dude, what? Like,
that food was so good.
oh
man.
yeah, no, he's really good.
Oh yeah,
I'm hoping he has like a name and a logo to put on the table for the next one. That'll
he'd probably be a good guy to like hit up on some bear meat recipes. Actually,
Oh yeah, no, and he likes eating game meat. So
Does he?
That's, yeah,
That
he's-
guy I had to do the food for my wedding.
Mhm.
He I think we had like he didn't do all the food. He did the main thing, which was chicken.
Mhm.
And the reason I asked him to do it was because he's talked to me for years about like I'm thinking about buying a truck to do a food truck, you know. And he
Mhm.
finally bought a truck and he drives it around for work because he's a drywaller now. He's been a drywaller, but he bought it and now he drives it around for work. Like that's great for work, you know. Okay, good for you. And he's kind of I think his idea is like okay, once he retires, he can
Mhm.
because he's union, right? So he'll retire one day and then put a bunch of money into the truck and get a food truck.
Yeah.
So if he gets a food truck, he will be
Yeah.
because it hasn't happened for a while, but every once in a while he will like try a new recipe of chicken, work on it,
Mm.
and we're talking same thing like days of prep
Yeah.
of like like the marinade or the dry rubs or whatever he's doing. It'll cool for this long. It does this for this long. And he's got all the stages worked out.
Right.
And he's a single guy.
It's a science.
Right. He's a single guy. And like, so you'll show, like, you'll walk into church and he'll be like, he's the head usher. He'll hand out the bulletins or whatever. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you know him or have met him.
Probably, yeah.
And he'll be like, hey, you want a piece of chicken? And you never say no to that from
pull it
him
out of his
because
pocket.
it'll be the best. No, he's got
A paper towel
in the closet
pocket.
behind him. He's got a whole big foil bin
Yeah.
of foil wrapped chicken
Nice.
to hand out to people and see what they think.
Nice.
And dude, like it is the best chicken you've ever eaten in your life.
Yeah.
And he did like 4 different kinds of chicken on our wedding. It was like,
And it's a weird art form too, because like you talk to these guys that do
Mhm.
this and they know like what each kind of wood does to the meat,
Oh, yeah.
what temperatures do to the meat, what
right.
if you wrap it with this and then you unwrap it for this long and then rewrap it, it does this. And then,
So maybe I should take him some
if you-
porcupine.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, he'd be the guy to take it to, honestly.
Right.
I gotta.
But honestly, it tastes like it, there's no like
Tastes like
gamey
chicken?
flavor to it at all. No, it tastes like pork. Honestly,
I'm just
like
kidding,
it doesn't really have the consistent. It doesn't have the consistency of pork. But like it tastes like when we do the pulled pork
Mhm.
sandwiches, it literally is like pulled pork. But it's like more tender. It's more soft. It's just like the one thing you do got to watch out for is they've got a lot of cartilage and a lot of small bones. So when you're shredding it, you got to watch out for that stuff. But even if you get it in your mouth, it's not the
My
end of the world.
buddy's family, I had it at their house when I first moved here,
Mhm.
and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's porcupine," and I was like, "No, really, what is it?" But
Yeah.
but they ate it all the time. They ate red squirrel.
Yeah.
They
Like local Alaskan red squirrel.
There's
no meat on those.
there
There's
is.
enough.
Apparently.
And they were from like the deep south. I can't remember.
that's why they
where,
eat
but
everything,
They and what's really interesting is another buddy of mine he was from Thailand. They'd like get together and chat it up and exchange ideas, and it was pretty like culinary ideas. You're just like, whoa,
Yeah.
you guys should open a food truck.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Could you imagine? A porcupine food truck.
So I
or
looked up-
something. Porcupines and squirrels.
I looked up the etymology of porcupine,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like from Latin originally, but pork, basically pork, pig,
Mm-hmm.
and then pine. Any guesses on pine?
yeah,
Like the tree. No?
No. Any guesses on pine? It's spiny, like pointy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So spiny pig,
Yeah.
pokey pig.
very
Pokey
interesting.
pig. Which makes sense. I mean,
It
that's how
does,
they
yeah.
taste.
Yeah, exactly.
They taste like pork. It's really cool
Well, and
stuff.
they kind of look like the face and stuff. Like you've kind of got the
Yeah, I mean, especially the way it's tucked in,
Right.
which and I mean, and that's all a good segue, I guess, because the way that their head is tucked in, you almost can't see it from
Mhm.
most angles. There's no neck; it's just
Right.
head, body. Like,
right. Well, and I don't know about like what if the porcupines in Europe are different. There's a good
There's a
chance they
lot of
are.
different
There's a lot
kinds,
of different. Have
actually.
you seen like those African porcupines with like the 12-inch quills on them and
yes.
the crazy long tails and like
yes, they had those in South Africa.
those things? Oh,
They're huge.
yeah.
They're
I
monstrous.
I saw them at a zoo or something one time and was just like, that's the coolest thing in this zoo.
Yeah, they were huge, and those quills. I mean, my goodness, they were that long. It was insane.
Yeah.
Like, no wonder lions don't mess with them. But no,
It tastes good
it's
though. You can get past those quills.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and honestly, I mean, I'm to the point. I'll try anything once, like as far as game animals go, because like we had a warthog over there too.
Yeah.
And like same thing, like they're just ugly. They're
they're
stinky.
ugly. Oh, those things
they
are ugly,
you
yeah.
know they don't look appetizing. It was so good. Like they didn't even do anything fancy to it. They just kind of put a little dry rub on it, cooked it up in what they call the braai, and like this little seasoning, and like it's like an oven style grill. It's like built into it like a brick oven style, but it's
Like a
all
pizza
a
oven type
wood fire
deal?
grill. Kind of a little more open than that, but
Okay.
yeah, same concept. And then just had a little bit of like dipping sauce with it. Oh, dude, it was so good. But like just like that, like I mean, you look at an animal and you might not think it looks appetizing, like a porcupine, right? But like
Muskrat.
or a muskrat, yeah. Like especially when it has the word musk in the name.
Yeah.
Like I mean, but from everything I've been told on muskrats, they're delicious, and I will stand by
A lot of
porcupines
stuff
all day
that like
long.
that. I mean, you look at like cranes.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
gross. They're a gross animal,
Yeah,
and they're like predatory too.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they're savages, right?
So good.
Dude, yeah, and I mean, it's just unbelievable. You don't have to do anything to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You could
The
literally
only
put
thing-
that on a campfire and eat it, and you'd be good. Like it'd
Yeah.
be delicious if you know.
The only thing I found with crane is if you overcook it at all, it gets real tough real fast.
Yep.
So you don't want to overcook it.
medium
but-
rare is where it's at on that stuff.
Yeah. And same with porcupine, like we low and slow every time we cook it. And that's just always worked out for us. And I think she did roast it one day. But and then that's hot and fast, I guess, it's like 450 in the oven for 10 or 15 minutes or whatever it is. It was really good that way too.
You know, you were talking about their defense a little bit there a minute ago.
Yep.
I've shot coyotes with porcupine quills.
Oh, dude.
In them.
Yeah.
And so then it got me like anything, right? You get that like cabin fever, you start researching stuff. And I started doing some research. They've actually found porcupine quills inside coyote stomachs.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Coyotes will actually just straight up like go right through everything and chow.
Well, and if you
porcupine.
flip them on their belly or on their backs to where their belly's exposed, then it's
they
fair
eat
game.
They eat lots of porcupines.
Yeah.
So,
It doesn't surprise me at all. Coyotes are crazy, dude. Like,
they're not.
there's a reason they exist in almost everywhere. Like, they just adapt. Like, they'll eat anything.
Yeah. I got one a few years ago, and it had a bunch of quills in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was yarding on those things with some pliers, and dude, it was so hard to get them out.
Yeah. Oh, it's so we had our dog got tangled up with a porcupine last year.
I remember.
Summer, and he ended up having to go to the vet and get put to sleep. Not put down, but put under anesthesia. And to get them out because he had so many quills on the side of his face. And like, luckily, the one thing I've heard, especially with domestic dogs, is if they get them in their mouth, they don't know any better. So they're just chomping on it, trying to get it out.
Getting
and it
it
just
deeper.
sets them deeper and deeper and deeper. And like, unfortunately, I've met several people in the village that said they lost dogs that way because there's no way they're going to fly them into town fast enough, and you can't get them out physically with the dog being awake because it's not going to let you do that.
Yeah.
But luckily, our dog, they were just in the side of his face because he's big and he's friendly, but he knows when he's not supposed to be friends with somebody, or when they don't want to be friends with him, I should say. The great thing is he's never been aggressive, but like if a dog nips at him, he doesn't nip back. He's just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna go do my thing over here.
That's a cool dog.
Yeah, no, he's great. But I'm assuming the same thing happened with the porcupine because it was just on one side of his face, and it looks like he got smacked, and it's like, okay, well, you're not fun. And but so they had to take him, put him to sleep, and then pull him all out. And he was on antibiotics for a long time. Like they were deep, and so it's not something to play around with.
So that being said, how do you go about preparing them?
So there's a couple of
I'm assuming head shoot 'em?
surefire ways. So yeah, that's a whole nother thing to go down. Because honestly, so the reason I said rats that don't like to die is they are rodents. So that's
right.
I'm not being derogatory, but they are every bit as tough as a beaver. So last summer I put 6 rounds of VMAX in one. Body shots.
Okay.
And when I skinned it out, and there's a crazier story than this one that happened quite recently. When I skinned it out, multiple of them were lung shots through, like there were no lungs left. And this thing was just still kicking around, like waddling away from us and like trying to get away. And it took a headshot to put it down finally, right between the eyes. And it went limp. They don't go limp immediately. They kind of like flex all of their quills and everything kind of comes up and it looks a little creepy, but like they're dead. They're dead at that point. You don't have to worry about it. But they are tough as they come. I had one recently that, they don't run fast, but they aim for the thickest. When you're chasing them, they know they're being hunted, and so they run for the thickest stuff they can possibly run to, and you will lose them in some of that, that low brush and whatnot, because they're just so small they disappear in it. So what I've started doing is kind of like you were talking about with the beavers, a body shot, you got a good lung shot, and that'll, if not kill them, it'll, keep them slow, and then you run up as fast as you can, and boom, headshot, and it's over, right? 2 seconds, and they're not suffering, not anything like that. But if I have not found one that died without a headshot, to be honest with you, that didn't get shot with a 30-06. And that's a whole different story. But
I don't think,
and no ruined meat on that one, actually.
I don't think I've ever shot them personally. I've known guys to do like pest ones or something like that. Just dispatch them with like a 44 mag. Those usually go down pretty quick.
Yeah, that'll do. That'll do just fine. I had one actually this last weekend that I did 2 lung shots on it. Ran up, headshot, threw it in the truck, got home 2 hours later, and it was still alive. It had gone completely limp on the headshot, not moving at all, grabbed it up by its leg. gave it a shake. Like it was dead. Like as far as I knew, like it was dead. And then I went to, we went to grab it out of the truck and it pulled its leg back. I'm like, whoa. Like,
you're lucky that thing didn't reanimate on you while you're holding it.
It tried. So I drug it out of the truck and went to do another headshot and it tried to stand up. I skinned that thing out. 2 shots in the lungs. 1 in the head. But just like for whatever reason, like didn't actually put it down.
Take out the right half of the brain or whatever.
I don't know, dude. It blew my mind.
That's the thing
and it made me so much more wary now of like making sure, because I was like, I'm like, oh yeah, headshot, it's done. Like, but these things, they have such a will. It's insane. They're like an African animal. Like you have to hit them in the right spot.
So
like the brain or the heart. That's it.
Trend here with the big rats that are hard to kill.
Mm-hmm.
Muskrats are smaller, but they're the same way. Now, I've never shot a muskrat.
Yeah, you were telling me about a story like that, Chris.
Dude,
they died the
you
same way.
can smack those things in the head incredibly hard, because that's how you kill them when you're trapping them usually, right? And you pop them in the head with a stick or a bat or something.
Yeah.
And I've had them like go completely limp, and next thing you know, the thing's jumped out of the sled and is running across the ice.
Yeah.
Dude, they're bullet.
And then you chase it down and grab it by the tail and you can smack it on the head again. But
yeah, I would say. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
Oh, I don't know how far we can go here, but
it's a hunting podcast.
No, like, and just to think of like animals like that, like fox. I've dispatched fox.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about fox snaring earlier.
Uh-huh.
A buddy of mine and I, we snared fox hard one year, and I mean we were putting up numbers. I mean every day we'd have a load of fox in the bed of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And we got this really big one. It was 5'1" from nose to tail. It was the biggest fox I've ever gotten in the interior.
Mm-hmm.
And I thumped it over the nose, choked it out. And this is early morning, and we're following the school bus, and we got people behind us. And I look in the rearview mirror, and like how people let their dogs ride in the back of the truck? That's what this thing was doing. Like,
no kidding.
Yeah, like just soaking up the 40 below breeze. Like I look, and this thing's just literally like, it's just like going for a ride. Like it's just kicking back there.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and people are just looking, right?
Oh, he's got a pet fox.
And I'm like,
isn't it cold?
I'm like, holy mackerel, no way, dude. And I mean, anyway, he's like, dude, we got to pull over. So we got in the spot, and I thumped it again, but I was like, dude, that was crazy.
Yeah.
And I've heard stuff like that with guys having wolverines in airplanes. And
I can only imagine as tough as beavers and porcupines are, dude.
Now I've shot wolverines, and good chest shot in wolverine. They usually die.
Will they? Yeah.
One of the best ones I ever heard is someone that we all know had a tannery here in town, and came off a trap line and had some fox, brought him in there, threw him down. Went to go make coffee or something and came back and was missing one. Right.
Whoa.
And walked into another compartment of this building, and this thing's just standing in the corner staring at the wall. I
don't feel so bad about my porcupine.
And he shot it in the building.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's some of this stuff you're like, what the heck? I mean,
and that's just it. It's that will to live, man. And it's like, it's crazy. Like 2 hours in the truck with 2 holes in its lungs and a headshot. Like,
and maybe, there might not have been anything going on there.
No,
you could have had,
it was not like fully
Possessed.
functional. Like, it was definitely not like alive and kicking and like walking away. Like, it was barely hanging on, but hanging on nonetheless.
Enough to feed you some quills.
I wouldn't even say that much. Like, it couldn't really move, but it could kind of go to stand up and whatnot. And I was just more amazed that it was even still alive. And that was if you're gonna hunt these things, and it's that way with beavers, it's that way with porcupines, it's that way with just apparently rodents of any kind.
Grouse are that way too.
They'll just make sure, double check, and like I said, when it dies, all of those quills, and I've seen this in every single one that died, and I was just in a hurry the other night when I didn't check this way, but when it does die, like I said, all those quills come up, its tail flexes, its quills flex, It all comes straight up and then it lays back down and then they're done. And that's it. And that's like a surefire way to know. The other thing is poke it in the eye. If it blinks, it's not dead. That's a
we
good
do it
trick.
on big game, yeah.
Yeah, that's it works the same with them. So, but anyway, yeah, everything we just talked about earlier in the show with beavers and how tough they are to kill applies to porcupines too. So don't think you're going to get away with anything with these things. They are tough. But you had mentioned, Mo asked the question about how do you prepare it? How do you get around the quills? A couple of ways to do that is their legs are pretty unprotected.
Okay.
So when you go to grab it after you verified death, just kind of roll it over with your boot. The bottom of your boot's not going to get anything stuck through it, So roll it over, grab it by any one of the legs, and they're all fine. They've got some claws, but there's no like prickly spikes on them. And you're pretty much safe to throw it in the truck and take it home. The way I process them is the fastest and safest way to do it that I've found. And if anybody has a faster and safer way to do it, let me know because I'm always down to learn. But the best way is in your yard or in wherever you're going to process these. Even if you build something like this, in the back of my house, I have 2 trees that I call the porcupine trees, and that's because they are perfectly parallel to each other, perfectly next to each other, and they are the exact distance apart that you would want to string this thing out.
Okay.
Like it's William Wallace. Like you just, that's like. God bless him.
Whoa.
But like that's the best way I have.
Yeah, that was heavy. My goodness, dude.
I'm tired. A little bit of my humor's kicking through.
I like it.
But what you do is you just take some 550 cord and you put a little loop on the end of one side. What I do is I use a 2 half hitches slip knot to make that loop. And then you can take one of its wrists and put that loop around its wrist, tie that, about eye level in the tree, maybe a little bit lower than eye level. Do the same with the other, get it spread out, and that way the chest is exposed and all of, it's basically head up, arms out in between these 2 trees or posts or poles, whatever you have. Do the same with the legs and stretch those out. That is the best way to skin these things out without getting poked with these quills, because otherwise you're fighting with it on the ground.
You can then
you're
just
rolling
start on
it around.
the chest and work your way out.
So what I do is I start on one of the wrists.
Okay.
So I'll open up the wrist, and I like using. I've got what is it? A Cutco. It's like a hunter with the gut hook on it.
Okay.
I really like that gut hook for this because once you open that wrist up, you can just get that in there, and you literally just make one cut all the way to the other wrist, across the chest and up to the other wrist. And then you just start skinning out from there, basically. You skin back over the shoulders. You move into the middle. You start skinning up from that chest slit to where you get to the head. You can take the head off. At that point, if you want to save the skull and boil it, because their skulls look, pretty cool too. I mean, they've got like big chomping teeth in the front and everything like beavers do and whatnot. Not as big as beavers, but, similar concept. But you're able to get that taken care of, get that set off to the side. Be careful, there are quills on the head, so you want to be careful of that. But what that allows you to do is you're standing in front of it and you're facing its belly, and there's no quills on the belly. And you're just able to work it from the belly side without ever having to fight it to roll over the way you want it to or stay laying down the way you want it to or anything like that. And then once you get the head off and you're skinned it over the back of the shoulders, then you can just start working it down. And then you make a slit down the belly and you skin it out that way. Now, if you're trying to taxidermy this thing, that's probably not the way you want to do it. I have no idea what that process would look like. Like I said, I've never even thought about mounting
Skin
one.
it out like a bear, I would think.
Yeah, or maybe even just take it to the taxidermist hole. Maybe he just wants to do it himself. I don't know. But
they usually do like a dorsal cut when they skin for like taxidermy work. If you're going to mount them, they'll actually go down the back.
On a porcupine?
On most things.
Oh, I know on most things, yeah. But just for a porcupine, I have no idea what
because
they
I think
want,
it's
so
easy to kind of
hide that.
To kind of slip that up and work it up.
Depends on the animal, but they don't do that on bears usually.
But yeah, so for meat though, for processing, then you make your slit down the belly. You just keep skinning it out. I used to gut them. I've hence stopped because I found out where the meat is and where it's not. And I'm here to tell you, I do not waste anything on an animal that I kill if I can help it, right? Like if I can actually harvest it, I will harvest it, even if it's kind of an inconvenience to me. There is no meat on the main torso of a porcupine at all.
Mm-hmm.
And what there is, you can get off with the quarters. So once you get, skin down the back, it's just kind of flopping off. And that's the beauty of it is you're using gravity, right? So you're not having to grab and pull or anything like that with these quills. You let gravity fall it down. You skin out the legs. Same thing. You just go around right above your 550 cord loops. They have good heels, so they're not going to slip off.
Mm-hmm.
Drop that off. Just cut the tail off, and then the bottom quarters are just like anything else, right? You just go in basically right along like the pelvis into the joint, and then you just pop that ball joint out. Where there is a little bit of meat on the torso part is on the lower back. So you can, when you go around the backside, now that you've got the skin off, you can just kind of flay down from the spine into that rear quarter and just take that off with it. It's a small animal, right? So
some back straps on there?
Not really. I mean, so it's got a little bit of like what you could consider like a tenderloin almost, like or actually above where the tenderloins would be. But like I said, you start at the spine, you flay down to that bottom leg, and it just pops off. You pop the joint out, good to go. And same thing on the front. So you start at the sternum, and you can flay out the pecs. Basically, is like what they are. It's just a little bit of chest meat that stays on top of the ribs. Their ribs are like cartilage. They're not like hard ribs. They're flexible. They're not good for. There's no meat on them. When I used to gut them out, I mean the membrane on those ribs in between each bone is transparent. It's that thin. There's literally nothing there, and there's no meat on the bone itself. It's all like pectorals, like what we have.
Yeah.
And so you kind of split those off to the shoulder on the top ones. Same thing on the back. There's a little bit of upper back muscles. Start at the spine on the top, flay that off to the shoulders, pulls it all off, and you've got all the meat on that porcupine that you're going to get. You can leave the guts in. All you're going to see is bones, and membrane, and guts. That's all.
Pretty small heart.
Very small heart. Yeah, it's not. I have tried to salvage organs off of them, and it's just that there's nothing there. It's like you don't really want to be eating the livers off of any kind of rodent. The hearts are like, maybe a walnut.
I would see saving the heart. Like, I mean, you save duck hearts, right?
On site, yeah.
I would say I like to save duck hearts because you can collect them, and then once you get a bunch of them together, you got a nice meal.
Right. Yeah. But and that might be something that's worth it. It's not a lot of work to gut them, honestly. I mean, it all just falls out.
And it could also just be that I mean, and once you've got that heart, like it could also just be that little tidbit that while you're cooking, you get to eat while you're cooking.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, and that's one thing. Yeah, we were doing that with the ducks. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, and the amount of meat you're gonna get off one of these things too, like a smaller one, feeds my wife and I for a dinner, and sometimes there's even like a little bit of leftovers, not a lot, but a big one. We'll have 3 dinners off of it. Like not 3 together, like 3 days, but like we'll both eat. That's 2 meals, and then there'll be enough leftovers for one more person to have it tomorrow, or to bring for lunch the next day, or something like that.
That'd be enough for me and my family. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be hard to get the kid to eat porcupine, probably.
Yeah, you just don't tell them what it is.
Yeah.
Wait until they say they like it, and then be like, "Oh yeah, that's porcupine." Like, because then they know.
Yeah,
like, then it's not a mental game.
You lie to them like I got lied to.
Yeah.
See, my parents would just say, "No, this is what it is, and you're going to eat it, or else."
Right? This ain't a restaurant.
You don't have an option.
I heard that one a lot growing up. Yeah.
Usually I can't convince her to eat it. It's sometimes there's the what?
That's why you wait till afterwards.
Right.
Yeah. But no, that's the fastest and easiest way. Like I wear latex gloves, obviously, because they're not the best smelling animals. I've never been poked doing it that way. As long as you only handle the arms until you get it strung up.
Try to save a hide on them ever?
I haven't. No.
I wonder how hard that would be to. It'd be cool to hang on the wall.
They're thin,
like a bear. Right?
I'll say that they're thin. And I guess the reason I haven't tried to save the hides is because I don't know who in the world would take one of those to tan it. Or I don't have the ability to do it myself. So probably not. It's just hard to handle, because even if you're handling, like when you pick it up to dispose of it, you got to be careful because it'll poke through its own skin. Like
I think you pull the quills but then you just don't really, it's kind of,
but what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would want to preserve it with the quills in it. Now we do save the quills.
No, I could,
a lot of them because you can use them for all kinds of stuff.
I wonder if you could just put those like back in or something.
Maybe.
Because I know like
We should find a taxidermist to talk to about that, because if somebody's done it, like that'd be really cool to hear about.
I probably can just Google it, right?
I guess, but that's not as fun.
I mean, if you have somebody to talk to or the time to find somebody, go for it. If I need to find something like that, I just Google it. Like, is this possible? And then I'll talk to somebody I know. Right?
There you go. Yeah.
We got someone that's pretty handy. Yeah.
Yep.
We should work on that.
I know. He'd be a good one.
He's so awesome. He would know too.
Oh yeah.
He would have all the silly answers
he's probably
to all
done
these
several
questions.
of them.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to porcupine hunting. Just make sure, look for them in forested areas. They're not going to be in the super wet, swampy stuff usually. I mean, I'm sure they wander in there every once in a while. Yeah, like I'm sure they wander in there sometimes, but they're, where I've found them most is always in the bigger trees areas. That just seems to be like the
big
highest.
spruces.
Yeah, and that's what they eat is the bark, and so. Fun fact, I talked to a trapper this last year that actually caught one in a lynx set in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I'd heard of one getting caught.
I've heard of that
in that way.
That's
like, no kidding. Like,
it happens.
Yeah.
What's that pan tension battle there?
Dude, I don't even know what it would get caught in. There's no neck. Like, what did you hit? What did you have?
Leg hold.
Well, yeah, a leg hold would be.
I've heard of guys getting them.
A lot of lynx sets are leg holds.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about it too, they get into they probably are like everything else, curiosity and I'm sure lure and stuff, and they go give stuff a sniff, and you got to think there's not a lot out. It's
right,
in the middle of winter.
And I've heard of people in like the lower 48 intentionally trapping them.
Really?
Yeah. From what I've been told, apples work really well. They love apples.
Sketchy business.
And I don't even know if I'm sure you probably are allowed to trap them here in Alaska. I don't know how well that would work out for you, but
well, the I think method of take is probably can't be that hard, because it's literally they're listed with. I was looking at the regs to see how they were listed. I don't have it pulled up now, but they're listed with like what's the small rodents we have, little tiny ones?
Voles?
Not voles, but step up, like a vole. I was thinking of
ground squirrels or something like that.
Marmots.
Oh, marmots.
Maybe marmot.
Yeah, marmots.
Shrew.
But they're
Shrew. They're listed with shrews.
I was just saying, marmots like pretty big.
Saying,
marmots are big. Yeah. No, but I mean, marmot's just basically a groundhog in Alaska, right?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Maybe bigger.
Mm-hmm.
They have pretty cool fur.
Yeah. Have you ever taken them?
What's that?
Have you ever harvested one?
I haven't. They're on rocky stuff.
Yeah, I
like
found
a lot
them.
of like lot of granite type stuff, and they'll come out in the spring and get on the south stuff, kind of like everything else. Yeah. Grizzly bears really like them.
Mm-hmm.
You'll usually find a lot of marmots where you find grizzlies.
Yeah,
maybe I should go hunt me some marmots.
Well,
they have really cool. They have some.
They
really
do. They
cool
look
fur.
really cool.
They are.
I had one burrow right in front of my bear bait barrel one time.
Really?
Yeah, it burrowed right in front of the barrel, and it kicked the dirt up to build a ramp to get into the barrel to get at the dog food.
Really?
Yeah. I had the whole thing on camera.
Hills or
I was a little higher on the hill than
where were you?
Like,
right. Yeah, no, I'm just like, because I've never seen them anywhere but up high.
I was higher. I wasn't like way high. Like I wasn't at elevation. Like I wasn't in the alpines or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I'm not like alpines above tree line.
No,
like,
I was where you bait bears.
Up on the rocks.
Yeah. No, I was where you bait bears, but there was a marmot that built its burrow right in front of there. And it was just the funniest thing because you would just watch it and it was just going back and forth and eating dog food. It was hilarious. But only time I've seen one in
things are
the
pretty
woods.
big.
Yeah, they're good size.
They could probably eat a lot of dog food.
Yeah, I had videos of like one of the bears chasing it around the tree and stuff like that. It was pretty funny.
Bears love eat.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Apparently, they're pretty good to eat.
Huh?
After trying porcupine, I'll give anything a shot.
It's got to be just a little bit easier to take care of, right?
I know, right?
Apparently, they might be hard to kill, though.
Yeah, I would just walk into that one expecting them to be hard to kill. Yeah, like every other rodent in Alaska. But yeah. I mean, unless you guys have anything else to add, that's all I've got on porcupines. They're an awesome thing to hunt, and they taste good. So give it a shot. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's worth a try once just to say you did it.
You know how we're like always looking at like when you start bear hunting, you look at like the middle vitals, like where to shoot bears, or right. Everything's got a different shot placement. It'd be interesting to do some homework on like where the off switch is.
Oh
on
yeah,
those,
on those.
Like actually break down that like skull anatomy, right? And look at, because that's why headshots are so questionable in general all the time, right? Because it's such a small window.
Yeah.
And
you can hit the nasal cavities and that thing's still going to be alive.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you hit the right angle and you can go through a bunch of stuff and still not
and
kill
especially
them.
with something like a porcupine where the head is basically part of the body. You know, it's very hard to see. So
they have such a huge neck on them because there is neck, but it's so big.
There is neck, but you can't see it. Yeah.
I almost wonder how like a head-on shot would do on them.
That's what put this one down.
Yeah.
I tried. The first one was from above, like straight down, basically. And it must have just been a little bit off, maybe
like close range, or were you uphill?
Standing right on top of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go. Shrew, mouse, and porcupine are listed in the same.
No kidding.
No limit, no close season.
Yep.
Except for in Unit 14C, in some areas of Chugach Park, like not allowed to hunt small game.
Huh. Well, that's why you read the record.
Yeah, if you think about it, that's grizzly country.
Yeah.
Where's the what was the one that I say? Marmot?
Marmot, yeah.
Looking for marmot here.
You know, I haven't heard a lot about people harvesting marmot, to be honest with you.
I haven't.
Like,
they're
not intentionally.
They're hard to, like, and if you think about it, places where you would go to kill them,
right?
You're doing other stuff that time of year.
Hunting caribou and grizzly and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're like, it's like breakup.
Mm-hmm.
Well, beaver hunting is so great while you're bear hunting.
I mean, if you're
marmot hunting,
if you're spring spot and stalking,
I know a spot I've seen them, and I bet you they're still there.
Oh,
they're still probably,
yeah.
If you went there like right at breakup, like right when they started coming out sunning,
that was middle of summer. I saw them there.
You'd want them like prime.
Yeah,
they have a bunch of holes up there and stuff, so it'd be pretty easy just to go up there.
You'll see them year round in that country. They don't ever go away. They're just that's where they den. That's where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you're right. They come out to sunbathe more in the springtime.
And that's when you'd want to like harvest one.
Yeah. But I've seen it a bunch of times where you'll just see a grizz in the distance and it's just digging and it's digging and digging and digging. And that's
ground
exactly what
squirrels
it's doing.
and marmots.
Yeah, ground squirrels and marmots.
You know, it's funny.
That's what they're going for.
When I worked up in Prudhoe, you'd see those like, they'd put those big boulders. I mean, they're probably 1,000 pounds to block those like, those river accesses into like the Sag.
Mm.
And every once in a while, you know, we'd go fish the Sag like when we had free time. And then you'd see those rocks moved. And I asked my buddy, I'm like, why do they move the rocks? Like, who moves the rocks? And he's like, dude, that's grizzly bears.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. He's like, because those ground squirrels will den up under there. And those grizzly bears will catch, wind them.
Yep.
And they'll roll those. I'm like, no way. And then one time we were going to go char fishing. And I seen this bear just yarding on this giant boulder. And I watched him just roll this thing right out of the way and just start winging dirt like 9 feet up in the air.
It's insane when you watch those things dig, man.
Dude, and we went over there and looked and yep. Just absolutely. And there were so many of us. We tried to move that rock. We couldn't budge it.
Yeah.
There was tons of us.
They're
fishing.
just a powerhouse.
Dude, this thing's just like leaning into this thing. Like,
oh man. That's why we carry big guns.
Cool place we live. Endless.
Yeah. No, but yeah, there's a lot of opportunity as far as small game goes that there's even more than we've just talked about today. I mean, that we don't even have time for. I mean, good night. This is supposed to be a short one, guys. What are we doing?
It's the way it goes sometimes.
It's endless. I mean, there's so
it really
much.
is.
That's what's so cool too. If there's something you don't like, you move on to the next thing until you find something
Yeah. No, it's there's enough of the big stuff to keep you busy if that's what you want to do. Like, I mean, we've dedicated a ton of time on the show just talking about the big stuff because there's so much of it to do. And there's so much that goes into the big stuff, bears and sheep and moose and caribou and all of that. But like, if you have some time in between, especially you're waiting for your bear bait to kick off, you go set it in the snow and you're just waiting for that time when they're coming in. Beavers, porcupines are moving around at that point in time. Like, as soon as you can get out and do something, like, I mean, we didn't even really get to talk about it today, but like muskrat trapping goes all the way through the thaw. You can trap them in open water. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure, in future episodes. But there's like all kinds of stuff you can do to keep yourself busy. So if you're sitting in your house bored, just do some research, get some gear, and get out there. Like it's not that there's nothing to do. It's just it might not be the one thing.
Like Mo was talking, it's cheap to make snares and.
Yep.
There's just so many things you can do. If you can't afford steel, you can't go out and buy like order boxes of traps and all that. Like you can make your own snares. Go get some aircraft cable and few different gauges and some ferrules and some snare locks and spool of 9-wire, spool of 11 wire.
Hobby.
And you make all when you're sitting around on your butt, losing your mind.
Yep.
Make all that stuff and
if trapping's not your thing, rimfire ammo's cheap.
Yes, it is.
So
22 mag is attainable.
Yeah, it is.
And effective.
And it might not necessarily be plentiful at all times, but they'll get shipments in, and if you just keep an eye out, you can get enough to last you a long time. Just buy a box of 50 every time you walk past one.
Heck yeah.
Like it's not a big deal. But anyway, you guys got anything to add as far as the small game and rodents go?
I don't think so.
All right.
I mean, there's a lot more to cover, but I think we've worn people out on it for now.
Exactly.
That's all I got.
All right.
We'll have plenty more chat, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening and hanging in there on this one. Hopefully you guys are inspired to go out and do some of this more small game stuff. There's a lot of stuff to do in this state. So if you have any questions about anything we talked about or just anything to say in general, you can reach out to us at either our social medias if you search at The Northern Hunter on either Facebook or Instagram, or you can contact us with the contact button on our website, thenorthernhunter.com. While you're there, if you want to check out our partners page, that's a bunch of great companies. You mentioned Stealthy Hunter and their rifle cover earlier in this show. They have a lot of great stuff with a discount code for us. We've got the 60-inch club with Troy Sessions. He's got a discount code with us for all his game bags and things you're going to need going forward. He's working on some really cool stuff to come out with, so we're going to see about what happens there. He's got his hunt planners too, or not hunt planners, but his what he calls the full access package.
Right.
If you're newer or you just want to get into some other areas, he can help guide you into good areas or help you pick apart your area and figure out where you want to hunt. That's a great thing. We've got his link there on the website as well. Batum 907 for this time of year. We use discount code with her, TNHP. Get all your bear bait and smell goods and attractants and, get those bears moving in. So make sure you're going and giving her some business. She has the best stuff out there. And that's not a paid statement. That is, we've been using this stuff for long before the Northern Hunter existed. So, if you'd feel so kind, we have our shop also. And if you want to rock the Northern Hunter logo, we've got a t-shirt to support the struggling salmon populations right now that just hit a couple weeks back or a few weeks back. We've got some logo gear, and if you'd be so kind as to rock some merch and send us a picture of it, that'd be awesome. And I guess that's it. So until next time, get out there, get after it. Good luck. We'll see you there.